right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Close. I am sorry I'm a little late, but we are here. We are live, and we are ending out the week of trading, a week that has been quite the week of trading in the stock market. And folks, we are going green into the close, and we're going pretty green in an exciting way. The S&P 500 was basically flat, a little bit red at one point. Now we are at 594 on the S&P, up about 0.5% on the day. It's not like it's been the biggest move for the S&P this week. We've had some days where we were up 1.52%, but still, I mean, after the type of week that we had, it is very, very nice to see the markets reacting the way they're reacting going into the close. NVIDIA, 135.19. That's up about 0.26%. Tessie, 348. That's up 2%. Robin at 61.67, 1.63%. Hims right here, 63.85. Just incredible. I mean, what is there to say? Up about 4%. Pretty damn incredible to see some of that momentum on Hims as well. So, I mean, it's a green day. It's a green day. We got a lot of things to cover. I believe we'll have Matt Money on the show at around 4:20. So he'll be on and we'll get to see his thoughts and see what he's saying. Steve will be on at around 5. So Steve has a couple meetings and then he'll be on and we'll get to see his thoughts as well. But congrats to everyone. Great day. 9% right there on Hims. Again, the S&P 500 up 0.5%. The Qs up 0.39. Big tech, not the craziest day for them. Google still struggling to really get some green. It's basically flat on the day. I mean, it's up 1.6%, but it was at 169 at one point. Now it's at 166. But overall, I mean, it's a hell of a way to end out a week that has been pretty damn epic. Bitcoin right here at 103.771 as well. Palantir, 129.13. Not bad. I mean, even if we close anywhere above 125, I think this week has been spectacular for Palantir. We did get to 133 at one point. But I think what it's really signaling is that we're risk on, and we're risk on in a way that's very exciting. I think one of the reasons for being so risk on is because the market is realizing there's kind of nowhere else to go. It's not bonds. It's not gold. It's, not real estate given mortgage rates right now. It's the stock market. 16 out of the last 19 days have been green. And on Monday, that might be 18 out of the last 21 days. And so it's really, really nice to see some of this momentum. Let's get to Tom Lee. He was on CNBC just 10 minutes ago. Get his thoughts on this market and where he thinks it's going. TLDR, he's a little bullish.
Fundstrat's Tom Lee is a CNBC contributor and joins us now from Miami. It's good to see you as always. How's that possible? How's the risk reward better now than then?
Scott, I think when we go back to February, when the market was at all-time highs, we have to keep in mind we had a lot of uncertainties ahead of us, and we weren't necessarily looking at 2026. The tariff visibility is much better today than it was 3 months ago. And when we look at 2026, I think that there are things to look forward to, such as deregulation, tax cuts, and actually a Fed that's on hold now, but probably doing more cuts now in 2026. And then from a company perspective, companies survived, I think, a black swan event. That waterfall decline in equities and the sort of the near heart attack of the economy was an environment where companies produced earnings that beat expectations. I mean, so this is the 5th stress test for businesses. I mean, when I put all that together, I think PE's probably going to be higher in 6 months than lower. And when you think about 2026 earnings having upside, I think there's still upside for stocks.
So, I mean, because you keep talking about 26, you're not writing off the rest of this year. We still have 7 months to go.
Yeah, we have a lot of history to make between now and year end. But keep in mind that waterfall decline in stocks also was almost a complete reset in positioning and sentiment. Investors were forced to liquidate when the VIX hit 60. We know a lot of institutions didn't add risk back as the market rallied. So I think the pullbacks are going to be pretty shallow because investors just are underinvested at the moment. And then when you look at sentiment,
that's basically the argument that, hey, when it was time to add, the biggest money managers in the world did not add. So now if you get a pullback, they're going to be more likely to add because they know they have to get into the market at some point. And if that's a 2, 3, 4% dip, that dip likely gets eaten up.
It's barely turning neutral now. So if investors have been fighting this rally, as they become more neutral or more optimistic, that's upside for stocks.
I mean, Professor Jeremy Siegel, like you, has grown more bullish, pointing out, in his words, the Trump pivot on the tariffs, but he still acknowledges the fact that the tariffs are likely to remain in place. Whether it's 30 on China and 10 on everybody else, that's still somewhat regressive, is it not?
Yeah, well, I mean, we are now in a new world of tariffs, and businesses are adjusting. I think one of the things that we're seeing is that the market is now in a position where they can start to look through some of the messy adjustments, right? We know there's been a disruption to the supply chain. I think stocks can look through that. But you're right, Scott, there is now this world where there's essentially a consumption tax in place on things that we're importing. But that doesn't mean we have to actually have the PE decline or the markets to fall. It's now just something we have to kind of manage through.
What about yields rising? How much of an issue potentially is that?
Well, I think Fed Chair Powell made a good point that long-term yields could be rising because of inflation volatility rather than inflation expectations going up. That's actually an opportunity for markets, because if inflation volatility delivered is less than expected, then we could expect yields to come down in the future.
Yeah, but what about, I feel like the bulls are finding convenient excuses for why the rates on the longer end are going up. What if it's simply, Tom, is the fact, and I don't mean to single you out, I mean, the professor in his answer to the question too put more credence in the fact that, well, maybe it's because growth is going to be better, not so much the deficit. However, what if finally the bond market is saying enough is enough and it's time to get real? And if you all don't, we will.
Yes, Scott, there was a moment like that a few years ago when, when an auction went badly and many people declared this was sort of the end of the ability for the US government to finance, and people panicked and the VIX surged. But even in that moment, it proved to be a buying opportunity for equity. So I think if there is a moment where maybe the bond market sort of has a tantrum about that, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if it does, I think we have to remember the U.S. is a huge economy. There is still a lot of trust in the U.S. And I think those who've called for the end of U.S. exceptionalism, I think that's been the premature call. And if none of those is true, the bond market and investors can handle even a 4.5%, 4.7% 10-year.
There's a little bit more that Tom Lee said. We'll get to him after the bell. But as you can see right here, he doesn't really care about bond yields. His argument is that, hey, equities are still likely undervalued given PE expansion, and eventually the bond market will chill out. But it's not one of those existential moments where the credit market is saying, United States debt will never have a bidder. He thinks there's always going to be a bidder. It's just a question of where risk on capital is being allocated. And right now, that's in the equity markets. HIMS right here, 64.20, up 10%. Obviously, the shorts are continuing to cover on a day like this. Pretty damn incredible. CoreWeave as well. Dude, I don't know why it's up 22%. If someone knows, let me know. They had a good earnings. I don't know if it was good enough for 22%. The short float on CoreWeave is, let's check that right now, not a lot from my understanding. It is currently, it's not even available. Yeah, they haven't been public long enough to give you that short float. Okay, so I don't know if there is a massive short float, and that's potentially causing a squeeze. There has been some good NVIDIA news all week with the Saudis, UAE, data centers, etc. They did have a good earnings. They do have a lot of debt. They do have a lot of capex, but I guess the market does not care. CoreWeave right here, 22.5% on the day. Absolutely incredible on this one. NVIDIA, yes, they do own 7% of them. Maybe that's also causing the pump. NVIDIA already owned, I think, 6.7%. So they added a little bit to the position. Maybe people are recognizing for the first time that NVIDIA actually owns 7% of CoreWeave, and that's why it's getting a bid, and it wasn't as highly publicized before they were public. So that probably makes sense. But NVIDIA right here, 135.28. Palantir, 129.50. We got about 3 minutes until the close. S&P 500, 594.18. 0.168%. And then you got UNH. You got new at UNH at 201. Thank you to Triple V for the $1.99 super chat. A lot of you guys might be wondering, wait a second, Triple V sends like $100 every day. Why is he cheaping out on $1.99? We had a friendly little bet over the past couple hours that UNH would close above 285. Remember, he has those 285 covered calls that I told you guys about in the morning. He has 2,000 contracts, so 200,000 shares. He bought at 260. And he bet me $1 that UNH would be below 285, which is his strike price by the end of the day. We got 2 minutes left. It looks like United Healthcare is going to be above 285, 290 right here, up 6%. I think he's going to let those shares get called away and make a healthy $5 million profit, including the $400,000 he got in premium. So not bad for about 24 hours. United Healthcare, 290.99, up 6% on the day. Palantir, 129.38. Hoodie, 61 at 75. Amazon at 205. Meta at 640. SoFi 1393, up about 2.5%. Google 167. MicroStrategy 399, and then Grab right here at 510. Basically flat the whole day, but nice to see it holding 5 pretty much the whole week. So pretty much the whole week, Grab staying at $5. Not too bad to see as well. All right, folks, it's been a hell of a week. It has been one of those weeks where you're just happy to have anything invested in the markets. It's also been one of those weeks where it paid off to be a bit more bullish than bearish when things were pretty tough, even if you were emotional about it, if you just bought the dip and kind of trusted in the idea of compounding capital and equities based on the, resounding idea that, hey, maybe we're not going to have 145% tariffs on China forever. That was enough. That was enough to get some momentum. And then all the stuff with the Saudis, we have some new updates on what's happening in the UAE that I'll talk about. We have a bunch of other headlines after the close that we'll get into. But all of that put together, a pretty successful trip in the Middle East, and then more clarity on potential trade deals coming next week. That is why we are seeing the market momentum that we're seeing right now. And it's pretty cool to see this all play out. So not bad at all. Here we go, folks. It is Friday. Thank you, everybody, for being here throughout the entire week. May 16th, 4 p.m., the stock market is now closed. All right, there we go. We are done for the week. We are done for the week. The S&P 500 ends 594.10 on the week. Not a bad week for the S&P 500. Over the past 5 days, the S&P is up 2.19%. Up 2.19%, and this comes from an 18% rally from the bottom in April. And the Qs are up about 25% from the bottom as well. Palantir, 129.50, ends up 1% on the day. NVIDIA, 135.33. That's up 0.37%. Tessie, 349.70. Tessie tried to go for 350 on the close. Could not get there, but nice to see Tessie at 349. This was the most hated stock going into their Q1 earnings. They quite frankly did not have a good earnings. The market did not care. We are looking past that for robotics and FSD. And that's what Tesla's being priced for. Robinhood, 61.67 on the day. Where did HIMS close? Did we get 64? HIMS, 64.50. It seems like that 72.73 high is now in contention for HIMS after being down 11% today. So incredible V-shape on HIMS. SoFi right here, 13.92 on the day. You had Pinterest, 32.57. You had Google, 166.14. Sundar had a great interview this morning kind of clarifying why he thinks that the company is not dead because of search. And the I.O. event next year is going to hopefully solidify that in the minds of investors. CoreWeave, 22% on the day. Big day for CoreWeave. You had Delo that was up about 4%. Iren that was up 8%. The Qs were up about 0.4%. VIX was down a little bit. Verizon up 1%. Archer up 8% after being up 20% for the week. Grab right here up about 0.4%. AMD up 1.86%. Coinbase, great day for them with that Webull partnership up 8.4%, really erasing a lot of the lows that they had after the hacker controversies or scandals came out yesterday. And also they got into the S&P 500 this week. So big deal for Coinbase. Eli Lilly right here up 3.5% even after that executive order by Trump. And then United Healthcare down 20% for the week, but up 6.35% for the day. It's been a decent week. It's been a decent week for the equity markets. Again, congratulations to everyone for the week. We cry as a community and we get to win as a community as well. Let's do a year-to-date update. Let's do a year-to-date update as we get into, I believe this is the 7th trading week of Q2. We got about another month and a half left, and then we are done with Q2. Year's going by quick, and then we'll be in Q3. I am 27.6% year-to-date. 27.6%. This was basically, down 35% around this time last month. So we're heading back up there to see if we can get into the green year to date. We got 12% Sage Spectre, 18%, 15% year to date, 12%, 19%. We got Nick up 200%. I think that has to do with a little bit of a HIMS. So there you go. Nick Moss, congrats, up 200%. Francesco, 24%. Kevin up 34%. Jane up 13%. Pretty much everyone looks green. I don't see any reds, which is good, regardless if it's 30%, 13%, or 25%. I think pretty much everyone looks pretty green. Critter Farm up 11.28%. Ryan Carlson, 122%. Subit, 72%. Ray at 14%. Jason up 271. Aaron, 228. Brad, 13.65. It seems like it's averaging around that 15 to 30% for most of you. It's not too bad. Not too bad, dude. Again, there's not many communities where everyone can get obsessed about every syllable Mr. Jerome Powell has to say, and that's what we do as a community. But it is that obsession that leads us to where we are right now. Let's finish up with Tom Lee. Then we got a bunch of other headlines, and then we'll keep going from there. But congrats to everyone on a pretty incredible week.
What would you lean into in the stock market right now? What do you like the best?
Well, I think the things that were working January to February and the things that have led from April to now are the ones that we want to stick with, which is like the Mag 7, Bitcoin. I mean, these are washed out groups because they were the first to fall. And then we like the cyclicals like small caps, financials, and industrials, including the regional banks.
Wow. So they'll withstand any movement in rates. They'll withstand continued questions about the durability of the economy. Again, I know there's a huge difference between soft data and real, but that sentiment and the confidence number today was horrific.
Yeah, I mean, we're in some really bizarre territory when it comes to the UMich inflation expectations, right?
Remember, they surveyed 200 people, and everyone thought inflation will be 7% a year from now. So a little bit skewed of a poll, but nonetheless, that sentiment survey the market did not care about today.
Nearly 10% inflation expectations when the delivered number is so low. Scott, I mean, these are divergences, but from an investor perspective, I would say that the hard data tells us expectations are too dire relative to delivered results. That's been the case since 2022. As you know, like the ISM's been below 50, yet companies were growing earnings. And I think if someone thinks it's cheaper to play this through Europe, just keep in mind, German tech stocks trade at 33 times earnings. When you look at US tech trading at 22, 23 times.
Okay, so I didn't know that. I did not know German tech stocks were trading at 33 times earnings. Bro, the United States economy, I think, has some of the best tech companies. How are we trading at 23 times and Germany is trading at 33 times? Well, the reason is because of all the tariff volatility. But if that flips, and I'm not saying we're going to get to 33 times, but if we get to 25, 26 times because we have the earnings growth to justify it, multiple expansion is coming, and the Mag 7 is going much, much higher.
You're getting a 10 PE discount buying US tech. And again, I think that means we're probably stretched on this non-US exceptionalism trade.
And you don't care about delays in AI models like we got from Meta and those types of questions in the face of huge continued spending?
Well, there's always going to be speed bumps, Scott. But I think when we think about this structurally, the visibility for AI spend is far better than a lot of other things that we can call secular themes. And so whether it's cybersecurity or AI and automation, first of all, the US companies are really the leaders here. And I think as tariff tensions de-escalate, it's allowing investors to actually go back to looking at these stocks. I mean, in a strange way, I think this is the first week that feels normal since February.
Yeah, we really haven't gotten any tariff headlines, but that's probably why. Enjoy Miami. We'll see you soon. That's Tom Lee.
Thanks, Scott.
Dude, not too bad. Not too bad for the broader markets. And look, what Tom Lee's saying, I agree with. I really do agree with that. It's a hell of an argument that there is more multiple expansion to have. Essentially, you could synthesize what Tom Lee's saying too is the worst is baked in. And now people need to position themselves appropriately. And that means they're going to have to start buying some more stocks. Speaking of buying stocks, the opposite of stocks are treasuries. And we did have the treasury market kind of cool down a little bit. And that's because foreigners are still buying U.S. treasuries. Net inflows to U.S. treasury funds from foreign investors reached $1.2 billion over the past 4 weeks. This is the highest in 6 months. It's really good. This is despite a 50 basis point spike in the 10-year note recorded in the second week of April. That's when, the credit market really started crying. That's when Trump had the 90-day pause. And as the Fed delay rate cuts and the odds of recession decline, yields are rising sharply. So we are getting people to buy bonds. It's not like everyone's just like leaving U.S. treasuries, but it's more so a question of deficit spending, the ability for us to maintain the current debt ceilings that we have right now or expand them, and how that implicates how investors are thinking about the overall inflation expectations. Again, Tom Lee doesn't really think it's that big of a deal because he believes that equity growth is going to be able to still allow money to come into the markets. And really, you would need a credit crisis for equities to be, fundamentally overvalued to the point where they would fall 20, 30% again. But if you get some people buying bonds, and we got to see what Basent's up to in terms of getting the bond markets get more excited, then that would be okay. Additionally, remember those SLR ratios, which essentially is a fancy way of saying banks will have the ability to buy more treasuries and hold them on their balance sheet, but the banks are begging to do. But unfortunately, or fortunately, because after 2008, we stopped them from doing that much. And we've kept that law in place for a long time. And it's led to some healthy consolidation in terms of the treasury markets. But at this point, if the Fed's not cutting rates, someone has got to buy our treasuries. There needs to be a bidder. And if it's going to be banks, then we need to give them the regulatory framework to be able to do that. So that's something really important that we got to watch out for when it comes to the treasury markets. We got this right here. United Kingdom overtakes China as the second largest foreign holder of U.S. Treasury securities at $779 billion in March. Wow. I wonder what that is updated towards the end of April. Granted, China and the UK basically have the same. I think China had 780 and the UK had like 760. So they're kind of neck and neck. But if China was dumping a little bit of our treasuries in order to buy gold, it makes sense that the United Kingdom might be overtaking them right now. Now, speaking of rate cuts, the Fed did have some comments today, and they were not really that good. Fed Bostic, who is one of the presidents on the Fed, who makes a vote in the FOMC meetings, he said three things. He said, number one, I see one rate cut this year, given all the uncertainty. Number two, economic growth may be at 1% or 0.5% this year. And number three, U.S.-China de-escalation changed my outlook a little. So these guys, the Federal Reserve, told us two cuts at the beginning of the year in their summary of economic projections. They did not give an SEP in the latest meeting. Jay Powell did not even commit to a single cut in the latest meeting when he was asked about it. And now Bostic is talking about barely getting one cut. I think the Fed is bluffing beyond imagination. They are going to have to give us at least two cuts. This economy is not going to survive if the cost of capital is this expensive. If inflation continues to show declines, we had CPI lower than expectations, 2.3 versus 2.4 this week. And then PPI, the highest or the sharpest decline since April of 2020. Like, you just can't ignore that. And you can't say it's because of tariffs, especially if we walk back some of those tariff deals and reduce rates for the average rate that we're imposing across the world. So I think from that perspective, we will get our cuts. I don't think it's happening in June. I'm kind of convinced June is off the table. There's only 15 days until June. So that likely won't change. But July, August, I think we'll get at least 25. And if we don't, this is going to be an issue that Powell has to deal with, I think, even more than Trump. So hopefully we get those rate cuts. That will definitely help in the context of the 10-year. Definitely will unlock the housing market a little bit more. But we're going to have to see until we get it. Now, this headline today was also very important in regards to NVIDIA. NVIDIA, OpenAI, and Cisco are backing the UAE Stargate data center project. Again, more headlines around how the UAE and the Saudis are essentially developing a better relationship with all these American tech companies and what that means for the broader semiconductor and AI space. Here's a little bit of coverage on that news today.
Reported no major change in customer behavior. Notably, Cisco CEO Chuck Robbins told CNBC that he believes 2025, and on the earnings call, won't be a peak for AI spending, which is a positive indicator for sustained growth. The outlier in the group, Applied Materials, with surprisingly flat revenue guidance compared to the stronger outlooks from competitors like Lam and KLA, which is why you're seeing AMAT up only 6% versus the other two over 10% higher for the week. Scott.
All right, great. Christina, thank you. Christina.
So again, dude, the Saudis, they treated Trump like a king. They welcomed him. They gave him the all-star treatment. And now NVIDIA, Google, Cisco, Oracle, Salesforce, all of these guys are saying, hey, we are ready to invest. We are also ready to take your investment dollars. Oracle right here, 160.45. And it has just been a hell of a week for a lot of these tech companies because of this new kind of AI capital that is forming in the Middle East. You thought it would be Europe. You thought it would be Asia. Nope, it's the Middle East. And as a result, a lot of that money hopefully coming to these American tech companies. So not too bad for the tech companies this year. Yes, Archer is definitely pushing strong in the UAE as well. They have a big partnership there, and they are pushing a shift to eVTOLs. The UAE would be perfect to kind of begin the process of normalizing eVTOLs in the broader world. I know New York is a big market that they have, but the UAE, the Saudis, I mean, the Middle East really wants to be on the cutting edge of technology, so eVTOLs there would be incredible. Archer right here up 8.86%, NVIDIA 135.42, and then Palantir 129.30. Let's hear from Dan Ives and what he has to say about Apple, Apple was not in Saudi Arabia this week, and Trump made a little bit of fun of Tim Cook for not being there. He's kind of annoyed that Apple is manufacturing in India. But here's what Dan Ives has to say in terms of defending the manufacturing in India.
To the president's continuing criticism of CEO Tim Cook and his company's manufacturing plans. Dan Ives is the star analyst at Wedbush. He joins us right here at Post Night. It's good to see you.
Yeah, great to be here.
They have been in the thick of it, right? Have you felt that trying to cover this company?
Yeah, and then they're in the eye of that storm. I mean, I think no one's impacted more, even when you compare to NVIDIA. I mean, if you look at Apple, they're in the eye of the storm from a supply perspective, but also a demand perspective. And that's why, look, we've spent a ton of time the last 3-4 weeks talking to all of our supplier checks throughout Asia, basically getting comfort. Can they get the iPhone 17 in terms of India as well as China, just to make sure that this is a hedge strategy? Feel a lot better about it today than we did 3 weeks ago.
Give me more on that, like the answer that you found. If you're asking the questions around that, what do the data tell you?
So that data tells us that they could scale iPhone 17 production assembly up to basically 60 to 65% coming out of India, if they need to. Okay, so we'll see what happens in terms of the China tariffs, do they even de-escalate more? But it shows that they now can pivot to a point. Scott, we talked 3 weeks ago, I thought best case, 25%. And even though they talked on the quarter more than 50%, it shows now they're I think, well ahead of this, putting themselves in a very hedged strategy, regardless of what happens from Trump administration, whether it's India as well as China.
Well, I mean, a strategy that's obviously gotten the ire of the president. What do you make of that?
I mean, look, we continue to view it, it's a fairy tale, the concept. Making an
manufacturing an iPhone in the United States.
No, look, if you want a $3,500 iPhone, we should make them in New Jersey. The reality is that it would take 4 to 5 years even to get 10% to the U.S. And if you look at the supply chain logistics of it, in my view, it's impossible. Now, look, in terms of AI investments, everything we've seen, the $500 billion, they probably upped that more. But when it comes to iPhone production, it's India, it's China, maybe some in Vietnam. We just don't see, and we get the pressure. That's, to us, it's not feasible that you could produce iPhones in the U.S.
You see the criticism as just a sideshow. I mean, it also comes in a week. Let's not forget that Jensen Huang of NVIDIA is over in the Middle East on this tour, and the president even called out the fact that he was there and Tim Cook was not. Is it a sideshow? Does it have the ability to become something more substantive?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, I think it's a shot across the bow a little at Cook relative to the India move, but also Jensen and NVIDIA are in a totally different situation. The reason he's on the Middle East trip relative to the AI revolution now coming to the Middle East, that's basically supplied by NVIDIA and the godfather of AI, Jensen. When it comes to Apple, they're in a much different supply perspective because to them, when it comes to iPhone, it's second biggest employer in China at peak iPhone season. So they can't all of a sudden just pivot. They've started to when it comes to India. And look, I think the overall view here is I feel just more and more comfortable going into the next few months that regardless of which way this goes, they're going to be in a good position, not just to produce iPhone 17, but I don't believe as of now you actually get a price increase, which I know that's been some of the talk out there.
Less than a month, you and me literally sitting next to each other at WWDC out in Cupertino, right?
We'll be there.
What kind of pressure now is on Apple to deliver something really substantive out of that event?
I mean, look, it's obviously a huge mea culpa if you go back, a year ago. I mean, you don't get a second chance at the Apple. I mean, I think this is one where they need to lay out for the developers what the AI ecosystem is. And you contrast that with Meta and obviously what they're doing with their model and obviously pushing that out. There's a window of opportunity here for Apple. I also believe we'll get that Alibaba partnership in China, which I think is key to that AI partnership. Look, the developers, me and you've talked about this, the hearts and lungs of the Apple and the Cupertino network.
Yeah, stakes are going to definitely be high as we sit together out there, and I look forward to that. Dan, thanks.
Thank you.
Dan Ives,
So Dan is bullish on Apple and navigating the tariff volatility. He still thinks that there's not going to be any crazy, insane tariffs on Apple, which I would have to agree with, especially because A, Apple's going to India. So that's one easy way to resolve it. But B, because Trump, is eventually going to cut some type of deal with Tim Cook, even if he's annoyed at him right now. Apple right here down about 0.2% of the day. And I think they'll be able to figure it out. In terms of the heat map for today, we were... pretty much green across the board. pretty much green across the board. Meta was down a little bit. Broadcom was down a little bit. Consumer services were up. Tesla was up. Eli Lilly, healthcare, pharmaceuticals were up. Retail, Walmart up 2% of the day. Walmart, good earnings. They said they're raising prices. Market doesn't care. Walmart up 1.86%. Walmart's basically at all-time highs. I mean, it's pretty incredible, dude. We are living in one of the most unique markets ever that's backed by a lot of earnings growth that definitely surprised everyone in Q1. No one thought we would actually have 11% earnings growth, and pretty much every, not literally every company, but 75 to 80% of the companies we looked at beat on EPS. And if they missed on revenue, it was a very, very slight miss. It wasn't really a meaningful miss on revenue. This was not 2022 when the misses were so disgusting that you were like, oh, this is bad. Like, we didn't have that type of earnings in Q1, maybe for some individual companies, but Amazon giving 17% AWS growth versus 17.6% AWS growth is not a reason for Amazon to have been down 7%. And that's why Amazon recovered. So yeah, overall been pretty green throughout the entire week. Now let's look at this right here. So there's another headline that I thought was really interesting. Take a look at the major AI data center infrastructure investments. This is updated from what the UAE, so this is a 5-year track record from 2025 to 2030. And this is not just NVIDIA, but this has to do with a lot of it is NVIDIA. AWS Anthropic is thinking of building a 4 gigawatt data center, or a 0.4 gigawatt data center in 2025. 2026, XAI is thinking of getting 1 million NVIDIA Blackwell chips to build a 2 gigawatt data center. Stargate, this is the OpenAI $100 to $500 billion investment. That is up to 2.2 million NVIDIA Blackwell chips. That's a 4.5 gigawatt data center. And then FluidStack for 2028 is trying to get 500,000 NVIDIA Blackwell chips, 1.2 gigawatt data centers in France. And then you got the UAE saying, hey, let's get 2.5 million NVIDIA Blackwell chips by 2030 to build out a full 5 gigawatt data center in 2030. Like, for anyone saying NVIDIA's cyclical, I mean, look, they're not going to keep growing 70% every year, but it seems like going to have demand to actually be able to bring in the computational infrastructure needed to justify finding AGI or being able to build AGI. And you're going to need a lot of NVIDIA chips. You're just going to need a lot of NVIDIA chips. Here's another thing I want to show everyone in regards to humanoid robotics that I think is also very important. Let me see if I've saved this right here. Again, Sundar talked a lot about the robotics opportunity as well today in his interview and said that he thinks the opportunity is going to be bigger than what a lot of people expect. But there's another video that I think I have saved that also discussed this opportunity at scale. Let's look at Sundar while I find that other video. This we didn't listen to in the morning, but he's pretty damn bullish on where robots are going to go. And again, Google has invested in Apptronic, which I also got to invest in the seed round of. Private humanoid robotic company worth about $1.3 billion. DeepMind, Google, that's the kind of software behind Apptronic's robots. And if Apptronic can even become the 3rd biggest one or the 5th biggest one behind Tesla, Figure, etc., that can also become a multi-$100 billion company.
I think this was going to be the year of the robot. We see so many models being trained on simulation data or real world kind of observational data that are then being used to control physical systems. Call it physical AI, call it robotics. Lots of startups, lots of big companies. Google bought Boston Dynamics and a bunch of other robotic companies. I think Andy Rubin was overseeing these for a while. And then you sold them off and decided it was too early. What's your point of view on the opportunity in robotics today? How does Google play here?
We are definitely for robotics, we again have probably, one of the most advanced frontier R&D teams in the world now. And the Gemini robotics efforts around vision language action models, et cetera, are world class. I do think, robotics, so we are now thinking through how we either partner or where we actually bring products out. You are right, we tried the application layer too early, where I think robotics wasn't really being influenced by AI as much. But now it's really the combination of AI plus robotics that gives that next sweet spot, right? And so we are making plans there. Nothing to share today, but you will see us make more announcements.
Yo, did Sundar just have jazz hands? Did you guys see that? Was that just me? Hold on, look at this. Look at this.
And so we are making
Dude, that yo, Sundar being a little flamboyant there. Oh, look at those jazz hands, bro. That was nice.
that next sweet spot, right? And so we are making plans there. Nothing to share today, but you will see us make more announcements in the space. But we are definitely foundationally driving the underlying models, and we are building state-of-the-art models there. We are working with partners and testing it. When I look at the progress of humanoid robots, etc., I mean, they are. In the past, I would say, "Oh, this is obviously, you can see how janky they are." Now I have to take 5 seconds to look at it and say closely and say, "Is this fake or is this an actual robot doing it?" Right. Like already I'm in that moment, and so you can see the progress in the field underway. So I think we are probably 2 to 3 years away from that magical moment in robotics too, and so that's the next exciting phase.
It's a good way to think.
So that's what we got from Sundar on robotics. Look, humanoids bullish, and we are going to be seeing a lot of demand for NVIDIA chips in those robots if they end up becoming, billions of them walking the face of the earth. And as a result, I think we're going to see a lot more momentum. This was the video I wanted to show. This is another company, I believe it's in China, that's working on a humanoid robot. As you can see, dude, there's just so many of these companies that are being formed. Not all of them are going to, be the massive winners. I think a lot of people are betting that Tesla will be able to figure it out. I'm betting that Figure will be one of those winners as well. But there's tons and tons of demand. I mean, these companies would not be working on this and trying to strip away each other's margins if they didn't all believe there was a massive opportunity here. And so, again, not all of them are going to win, but this is going to be a big market. And NVIDIA's chips are going to be central for pretty much all this markets. Here's another one right here from the same company, AGI bot. And look at that. It's pretty incredible, dude. This is not slowing down. Now, the one thing about these Chinese robots is I don't think American companies are going to buy Chinese robots that like collect data, because I don't think anyone wants the CCP collecting all that data. But a lot of American companies that are working on it, I think we'll have a pretty big market, even domestically, inside of the United States. But to do this, we need AGI. We need vision models and audio models and text models that can all symbiotically work together simultaneously to actually get a robot to do what a human's doing. I mean, it's like ChatGPT it's a robot via text, and you ask it a question and it thinks like a human. But for something to physically act like a human, it's just harder. And I think that progress is going to require more NVIDIA chips to get there. Now, here's an update on the United States and the EU. So the US and the EU have braked their impasse to enable tariff talks. This was reported by the Financial Times. The US and the European Union have finally made some headway in trade talks, moving past a long-standing deadlock that left the EU sidelined in negotiations with Trump's administration. According to 4 sources close to the situation and an EU briefing note reviewed by the Financial Times, the two sides recently exchanged negotiating documents for the first time in over a month. These outline key areas for discussion, including tariffs, digital trade, and investment opportunities. If we get a big EU deal by the end of June, and then China maybe in the middle of July, and hopefully India before that, you've just got 3 big pieces of news and forms of momentum that can keep this market continuing to grind higher, which I think is going to be, very important overall. Brandon, thank you for the $5 super chat. Can you explain the process that allowed you to invest privately in the seed round for those that are interested in well? So I got a connection through a friend. I've talked about this before, Chris Camillo. He is someone who got me into Aptronic. I met Chris through Derek, which is another one of my friends who got me into Figure. And they were raising the round at like a $250 million cap. And I wasn't going to invest, to be honest, but Derek told me, just look into it. And then I called Chris that day, and he didn't even know me at the time, but they were raising money. So I got his number and I was just like, hey, is this legit? And then he gave me his thesis. Now I'm like more friends with Chris and I know him personally. But if you've ever listened to Chris talk about robotics, he just believes that it's the biggest thing in the world. And so he kind of sold me in those 15 minutes. And he was like, dude, it's a $250 million market cap. It's probably going to be a lot more in the future. And, you can't deny that there's going to be multiple winners when it comes to robotics. So I was able to get in through him, and I put 10 grand in from there, and that investment has done pretty well. in terms of wanting to get access to it, you can still invest in these companies. Again, there's a platform called Hive. You have to pay a little bit more. You have to prove you're an accredited investor on it, HIIV. There's also a lot of other companies that do this. Hive, to me, is the one that's the most like secure for doing it. And it's just a marketplace for buying and selling private stock. So if you can't get in through an SPV, which is a special purpose vehicle, you can still get into these names. And realistically, like, you know, if people through the SPV got in at 1 billion and you have to pay 5 billion, but the company's going to be worth 100 billion, like that extra 4 billion just doesn't matter as much. So it's just a question of, do you want to get access to this from a liquidity perspective? They have Figure, OpenAI, Databricks. I mean, all these companies are being sold on the secondaries. And you might be asking, why are these shares sold on secondary markets? It's because of employees, right? Employees want to offload some of their shares as well. Yes, you can get Anduril on Hive as well. Now, Anduril's last funding round, I think, was 19 billion. So if you have to pay 28 billion, again, you're paying a premium to what people got to pay if they went in directly through the SPV. But if you think Anduril is going to be 200 billion one day and you don't want to wait till IPO when they IPO at 75 billion or whatever it is, then it's just, you know, a personal decision on when you want to get into the name. So I'm sure there's a European version of this, even if it's not Hive. Like you just look up secondary markets for private stocks. I mean, there's a lot of brokers that are out there. You have to make sure and trust it's legit, but there are plenty of ways to get access to these names. The thing is, you're just not liquid for a while, right? And when they IPO, you have to wait, or you have to be willing to sell your stock to someone else. So it's one of those things where your capital, like that capital that I have in Figure and Eptronic, I'm not seeing it for the next decade. And I don't want to see it for the next decade because I want it to compound aggressively, but I'm also hoping that it'll be there and be much greater a decade from now. The CEO of Novo Nordisk has stepped down. That is correct. They did step down early this morning. That stock was down like 3% on that news. Still down 2.83% of the day. But yeah, they did step down. Evan says, should Robinhood make a Hive competitor? I think Robinhood's going to make a Hive competitor. Dude, I think they're going to make, I think Robinhood's going to make trading shares of SpaceX in a secondary market literally as easy as buying stocks in crypto. I don't know when. I don't know how. Maybe they do it through some tokenized blockchain type of product, but I think it's going to happen. And when it does happen, you know, and they're in Singapore and Europe and the United States, I mean, a lot of people will have access to liquidity in the secondary markets. So I think it's inevitable they'll do that. But when they do, it'll be pretty exciting as well. What do you think is the best broker in Europe? Big fan here from Germany. So I'm not familiar with most of the brokers in Europe. I would love people in the chat to give me their best brokers. The only one I know in the UK is Trading 212. That is the one that a lot of people love. But outside of that, I'm not too familiar. Big brokerages in Europe. I feel like I should know this. What are the big brokers in Europe? Oh, Interactive. How could I forget? IBKR, right? That's got to be the best one. That's got to be the one that everyone loves, right? Yeah, IBKR. UK is more T212. Maybe Hood soon. Yes, maybe Hood. But IBKR is a big one as well. But yeah, dude, this humanoid revolution is happening. I am more and more convinced it is going to happen. And again, if Elon finds a way to show everyone that he's not messing around when it comes to Optimus, we see a lot of Optimus Tesla employees on Twitter that keep hinting and posting and saying, hey, we're working on some really big stuff. You guys have no idea what's happening. Like, it could be one of those things that just easily allows Tesla to sustain a higher valuation. And, you know, maybe the days below 300 are not going to be that easy. Yeah, Robin is in the UK, but I think Trading 212 is still more prevalent than Robinhood in the UK. So I don't think Hood has really captured a ton of market share yet. But I think they'll be planning on doing that over the coming years. HIMS right here, again, on the day, big day for HIMS, up 10.06%, 64.47 on HIMS. Again, it's been pretty damn green the entire week. NVIDIA stock over the past 5 days, this thing, I think it's 20%. The past month is 29%. Past 5 days is 11%. But 30% in a month. And realistically, all because the market woke up and realized that it's hard to ignore what's happening with AI. Amid Trading 212 as the tax wrapped accounts, Hood is not applied yet. Yeah, Hood doesn't have ISAs yet, right? Either ISAs. So that's another thing that Hood still needs to figure out. What is the minimum investment for Figure? When I invested, it was 25,000 through an SPV. I think on some of these websites, it's around 25 to 50. But given like Hive, I think you could buy like 5 to 10,000 because it's a marketplace, right? Like you're literally buying it from someone. So if someone puts up $50,000 worth of their OpenAI and you buy 5,000 of it and someone else buys 10,000 of it, then the orders can get executed. So I don't really think there's a minimum requirement. You see, you have XAI right there. You got Kraken. You have Ripple Labs. You have Anthropic, Epic Games, Neuralink, Stripe. I mean, just a lot of different names that eventually everyone thinks is going to go public. How much do you need to be considered accredited? Well, in the United States, it's it's 250,000 a year in income for the past couple of years, and $1 million net worth excluding your house. I believe that's a requirement. So 250K of income and then $1 million like all some of your assets excluding your house gets you to $1 million. So yeah, once you like submit your tax returns and stuff like that, they just verify and then boom, they get you there. And that's the other thing that Robin is working on, dude, because those accredited rules are kind of stupid, right? Like as Vlad says, why should I be able to buy a meme stock and I don't, have $250,000 in income, but I can't buy SpaceX? SpaceX is a lot less risky than some fart coin, right? So I think when they tokenize this stuff and get rid of all the bureaucracy in the middle of it, because some random guy came up with the idea that, oh, someone needs to have 250,000. Like, what's the difference between 225,000? Like, it's all nonsense. So eventually, as that changes, it's just going to open up so much more liquidity. I think the reason they created these rules is because startups are risky and most of them fail. So they want to protect individual investors from losing their capital. And that's fair. But some of the best companies in the world, like a SpaceX, are fundamentally de-risked just based on their progress and their execution. So when it comes to those companies, I think easily Robinhood could like give a big warning symbol on a startup that's brand new and that's not SpaceX and that's super risky, and then kind of put a check mark on a stock that is risky or a private company that's risky, but obviously is not the same type of risk as someone who just raised their first seed round. So there's easier ways to navigate it than literally stopping people from being able to buy some of these private stocks. Yeah, Palmer Lucky's against it. He thinks it's stupid. I mean, a lot of these big guys just think these rules are so bureaucratic to be able to do. What percentage fails more, startups or meme coins? It's a good question. I would say, I think it's 9 out of 10 startups fail. On meme coins, I would say it's probably the same, dude. It's to get a meme coin and to get a community that actually like believes in that coin, not easy. So I would say they're kind of on the same path in terms of the ones that win or the ones that fail. Take a look at this. So how we talked about that Zewig breath thrust technical thingy like a week ago that said the markets were going higher? Here's another one. For only the 8th time in history, the S&P 500 triggered a de Graaf breath thrust, which implies 55% of the S&P 500 stocks hit a 20-day high, and a Zewig breath thrust within a month. It's a lot of thrusting. The S&P 500 went on to trade green 3 months later, 6 months later, and 1 year later, each of the previous times that this has happened, the past 8 times in history. So this is a de Graaf and Zewig breath thrust occurring within 1 month of each other. If you don't care what this means, essentially what it means is we're going higher. We're going a lot higher based on all this thrusting. So there you go. That's what we got right now from a historical macro perspective here. Will SpaceX go public? I think they will. I just think Elon doesn't want to deal with it right now because why would he, right? He doesn't have to be accountable to shareholders, and Starlink is able to still operate the way it's operating. So I think 2027 they'll go public. I don't think it'll be 2026. I think Andrew might do end of 2026, but also Palmer Luckey I don't think wants to go public either, because at least not yet, because he knows, right? Like there's just little value to having to disclose all this info and dealing with shareholders and stuff. Like they can just grow as fast as they're growing without needing to worry about being profitable, all that stuff. So I don't think that's going to be a big thing that's on his priority. I shared this video a couple of days ago, but I'll share it again right here. This is Palmer Luckey talking about why going public will be so important for them and getting the right type of investors. And, he wants a cult fan base that actually cares about how he's building the company.
A lot of people imagine that if Anduril goes public, we'll become like other public defense companies because the less risk, not willing to invest in the future, paying out dividends rather than investing in R&D,
maximizing quarterly returns.
But that doesn't have to necessarily be the case. Tesla has an extremely high price to earnings ratio. Why? Because their investors believe that they are going to win across the board on a multi-decade timescale. They think they're going to win at robotics, they're going to win at energy, and I think they have a very good shot at winning on all or most of those items. And you could ask yourself, well, wait, what? They're a publicly traded company. Why aren't they like one of the more traditional automotive companies? Why weren't they forced to be more like a traditional company? And the answer is simple, because they've cultivated an investor base that believes in what Tesla is. They've repelled everybody else. Many of the people they've repelled are now shorting Tesla because they don't believe in it. I think it's the same way for us. We're going to need to attract people who believe in what we are, repel everybody else. And if we ever start getting enough of an investor base that is pressuring us to do the wrong thing, I'm going to need to go in the press and say some crazy shit to scare them all away.
It's going to be a fun ride when Anduril goes public. I mean, people are going to get excited for Anduril, and I think they're going to really trust in Palmer Luckey's leadership. Let's hear from the professor. We haven't listened to him today. He was also on CNBC. Let's get his thoughts on kind of what he thought about tariffs, this week's performance, and if he thinks the market is going higher.
On there, but it's coming into focus. It's not a good thing. It isn't positive. Listen, I think without the tariffs, the stock market would be 10% higher, but it has a lot, the market has a lot of positive things, I think, going for it. I like the low prints I see on inflation. Yes, I do know that the tariffs are going to be coming up, but I think that is definitely positive. I like what Trump is doing in the Mideast and Saudi and Qatar, and that's a huge area, a positive area there. And I just like the way that the market is reacting to potentially negative news. I mean, how it brushed off, as you mentioned at the top of the show, the budget committee turning down the tax proposal, a brief dip, but then a rise. By the way, that's going to get done. I've seen this many times before. You've seen it many times before. We will get a tax deal coming up. So I think this market could surprise everyone by hitting new highs.
Wow. An incredible.
There you go. Siegel goes bullish. Siegel goes bullish. Maybe the markets continue to go higher now.
Change of tone. And many do believe that the tone and tenor of this market, Professor, has in fact changed since last week. It's evidenced by what you see in the markets here. And you mentioned some of the data, the real data. The debate now is whether the soft data is going to bleed into and become real data. Consumer confidence, Rick Santelli was just talking about it, the second worst read ever of all time. And at the same time, inflation expectations are really ratcheted up. That's not a problem, either of those metrics?
Well, let me talk about that second metric. 7.4% for 1 year is no econometric model, even the most pessimistic, has anything like that as the inflation rate over the next 12 months. I think, whatever scare is being put into people, oh my God, they keep on ramping up and they're hearing 20%, 30%. No, I mean, the best estimates I'm getting is that the tariffs will probably bump up the CPI by 1.5 percentage points, maybe 2 over the next 12 to 18 months. It will slow growth. Looks like GDP this year is going to be 1% rather than 2, which we saw in December, but nothing like the data that, we're seeing on that University of Michigan sentiment. So I think people might be saying, hey, you know what? This isn't as bad as I had thought. Another positive feature, the dollar is 10% lower, and there's two positives about that. First of all, that helps the multinationals' earnings, certainly translated from euros and other currencies into the dollar. That's a tailwind there. But even though the S&P and AI is maybe 5 to 10% off its highs in the U.S., it's 15 to 20% off for Europeans and non-U.S. investors because the dollar has dropped. So they're actually picking up some of the best companies in the world everywhere at a price considerably cheaper than what they saw just 6 months ago.
And he's right about that. The dollar right here, I haven't looked at it in like a few days, but 101.110. This thing was at 109, or almost at 112 back at the lows of April, which, you know, a strong dollar is good, but that strong's a little too aggressive. So it is nice to see that that dollar is calming down a little bit. And as a result, you know, it's easier for partners to do more trade with us, which is not too bad as well. Here's Cameron Dawson as well today, and here are her thoughts on the current state of the markets.
Has really changed his pace, but we do have this bill issue that we need to keep our eyes on too in DC.
Yeah, so from the equity market perspective, I'd add one word to Professor Siegel's assessment, which is positioning. It still remains underweight from an institutional perspective. Institutions have sat on the sidelines as this market has ripped higher. So if you're looking for a reason why the rally could continue, why we could still have this chase, it's that you still have institutions that need to get fully invested. So we're still watching that very closely as a key upside driver in the very short term. When it comes to the bill, never has a tax reform bill cost so much to the deficit and given so little when it comes to growth stimulus kind of tax cuts, meaning that so much of this bill is being driven just by the extension of what we existing have. So we do think that it's going to be very difficult to find compromise, that there's likely still a lot of headline back and forth. So we're not necessarily seeing it as a big, huge stimulus in the near term.
Best case for stocks is what? That it happens, that it gets passed, but it's just smaller?
Probably yes, because if it's smaller, it means the 10-year yield doesn't go up
That's
as much.
my point. It's exactly right. I mean, therein lies the key to this whole thing, is the bond market not starting to throw a bigger tantrum.
And as we were seeing some momentum for this bill earlier in the week, we saw the bond yield on the 10-year start to creep higher. We saw the 30-year start to touch 5%. Those were levels that we got to back in April when equity markets were really freaking out. So we do think that if it is a truly big, beautiful bill, that you could see that upward pressure on bond yields, which would make an equity market trading at 21.6 times forward look rather expensive.
That's a perfect position to send it back to you, Professor.
She's right. She's right, dude. 21.6 times, that can be expensive if our deficit doesn't ease up, and the cost of capital, aka the 10-year, will let us know how the credit markets think about it. By the way, Rocket Lab, great day for Rocket Lab, 25.56, up 1.35%. Not bad for Rocket Lab today. I think it's up on the week, what, like 18% for the week? Yeah, 18% for the week. But that's something we got to deal with, right? We really do have to figure out what is going to happen with our deficit spending. By the way, I said in the morning, you know, there were 4 Republicans that are holding out on this bill. And I found out today who are those 4. I'll see if I can pull up the graphic, but there's about 4 of them. And, you know, Trump needs pretty much every single vote he can get, but there are indeed 4 that are holding out. And, you know, in order to get his bill passed, even through reconciliation, he needs those 4. But there are people waiting out. Again, the big controversy right here is, should illegal immigrants be able to have Medicare? That's what Trump is trying to cut in terms of spending. It's a dicey topic. It's going to be hard, I think, to get everyone on board with that. Defense spending going up, but cutting Medicaid for illegal immigrants. I mean, it's just one of those things that's going to be heavily debated. And I don't know if he's going to be able to get that passed. That's why he tweeted today that everyone has to vote for the bill and stop posturing to his Republican colleagues. But some of them might end up continuing to not give him that easy of a win. Here's that update right here on OpenAI continuing to help the UAE as well when it comes to data centers.
In the UAE, United Arab Emirates, this is according to a source familiar with the matter. No comment from OpenAI, but I am told by this source that OpenAI is going to be part of this 5 gigawatt data center, not the entire thing. So just a portion. Details could change the facility. I'm told it's set to be as large as 10 square miles. Bloomberg did first report some of these details. It speaks to the company's global ambitions for one of the most valuable private companies in the world at this point, worth about $300 billion. And CEO Sam Altman was in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. And then I'm also told by sources he is in the UAE this week, and the news is consistent with some of the other AI projects and ambitious projects, including Stargate, OpenAI has been a part of and has been doing in the region. Also, we saw a close Altman ally and backer, Masayoshi Son, of SoftBank there on video with UAE leaders this week, and of course, President Trump as well. I also just want to mention, I think Christina might be hitting this, but there's news that NVIDIA and Cisco are also going to be backing this data center project, which I think is coming from our own K-Parts, but some initial additions there as well as OpenAI. Back to you.
There's just so much bullish news when it comes to data centers and when it comes to overall spending for those data centers and what it means for the chips. So it's not bad, dude. It is not bad at all. S&P 500 down a little bit right here after ours, 592.83. We closed at 594, but still green for the day. Okay, so I texted Steve to see if he's still going to be on. He said 5 o'clock. I believe he should be at 5 o'clock, but if he doesn't come on today, then it is what it is. We'll probably talk to him on Sunday. We did get to talk to him yesterday, so he was on for a bit yesterday. But he's in some big meeting, so he said he might be free at 5. If he is, he'll hop on. If not, then it is what it is. If not, we're going to be ending out the streams for the week. No Pouncer Weekly tonight. We'll be back on Sunday. Boston meetup still happening. I'm putting the link right there in the chat. More details will be coming out soon. And again, it'll be a little bit of a smaller meetup, but will be fun to be in Boston and see everyone who comes out. No Steve Daly. Steve basically is on every other day at this point, if not almost daily. But he does have a it was so funny. So last night, dude, he texted me this picture. Okay, you guys are probably gonna roast me for this, but there's gonna be some people that agree with me for this, right? Okay, he texted me this. This is the cookies that he was eating. Okay, these are the cookies that he was eating. Milano raspberry chocolate cookies. All right. Now, look, I texted him. That's disgusting. Who eats raspberry with chocolate? And he got so mad at me. He called me up today and had me on speakerphone with his coworker. And his coworker scolded me for 10 minutes about telling him that raspberry chocolate is disgusting. And so I got scolded from his coworker. Now, and she did stump me a little bit, though, because she was like, well, what about chocolate strawberries? I was like, that's a combination where chocolate and fruit works out. But when it comes to raspberry chocolate, I just think it's a little too tangy. I don't get it. I don't really see the bull case there. So I did get a little bit of a scolding from his coworker. Did we get a new credit rating? Did we just get a new credit rating right now? Let me see. Did Moody's get a little moody and downgrade the U.S.? Yeah. Okay. So they downgraded the U.S. credit rating. That's probably why the S&P 500 is down just a little bit right now after hours. Where are bond yields? Let me check bond yields. Okay, they're up a little bit. I mean, look, the bond market's going to be emotional and, dare I say, moody in reacting to this, but this happens every time. Moody just cut the U.S.'s credit rating, citing rising debt and a weaker fiscal outlook. They now expect the federal debt burden to sit around 134% of GDP by 2035, up from 98% in 2024. While they still see strong economic fundamentals, they say that's no longer enough to fully offset the decline in fiscal health. Long-term growth isn't expected to take a major hit from tariffs. It is what it is, bro. It is what it is. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to default, but we talked about it in the morning. I don't think we're going to have any meaningful cuts in the budget. So we're going to have to outgrow this, and hopefully we can outgrow this in a meaningful way. S&P 500 right there, 592. You got that red candle based on that Moody's downgrade. But look, this happens all the time, bro. This happens all the time. Every time Moody's or Fitch or any of these guys put out a downgrade, it's like the market gets emotional. They react. They're like, oh my God, a downgrade, the US debt. But then, like, are we actually going to default? Are we actually not going to pay back our debt? Like, is our debt worse than China's debt or the United Kingdom's debt or Japan's debt? It's like, no, we still have the best debt in the world. So Moody's has to do this because they're reacting to the sort of economic fundamentals they're seeing, but it doesn't necessarily mean the market has to react in some horrific way. 2023, we got downgraded a couple times when Silicon Valley Bank failed, but the market kind of just moved on from that. Warren, thank you for the super chat. Amid great stream and great week. Thank you, Warren. Thanks for being here. And congrats, Warren, on SMCI. I know you're still a little bit away from breaking even on that one, but made some major progress this week, up about 20%. So not bad for you on the SMCI. But yeah, that's why the market's taking a little bit of a hit after hours right here. S&P 591. Again, this is the question. If you sell the S&P, where do you go? Right? because Moody's downgraded our credit rating. Like, do you go to gold? It's like, okay, cool. Go to gold while Nvidia is growing 70% year over year. Go to gold while Robinhood is growing 50% year over year. Like, okay. People can be emotional about this, but at the end of the day, they're coming back to stocks. They are coming back, most likely, to stocks. Honest. Yeah, I didn't look at Honest today. Where was Honest? Honest, did they move? Oh, wow. They had a good day, up 6%. They had good earnings last week, or I think it was this week on Tuesday. Not a crazy good earnings. They're growing about 13% year over year, small cap, but Honest company was up about 6.3%. I don't think Matt's coming on. I gave him the link if he was available, and if he was free, he might not have been free to pop on. So we might not hear from Mr. Matt Money. But Matt had a great week with Rocket Lab. I think he's got a decent chunk of shares in that company. So Rocket Lab, not too bad. Oh yeah, there is a new Tesla board member. That's correct. So let me pull that up. I didn't look into it too much, but there is a new Tesla board member. Jack Hartung has voluntarily declined both cash and stock compensation for his new board member role for now. He and the rest of the board have waived any further stock or stock option compensation until the board decides on new terms for equity compensation. Okay, who is Jack Hartung? He is a longtime Chipotle executive. He joined Chipotle in 2002, and Tesla is now adding him effective June 1st. Okay, cool. So Jack Hartung, Chipotle to be catered at each meeting. Yeah. There you go. They got a new board director. Interesting from Chipotle. I think there's a deeper story for why they got this guy, but that's who they have. S&P 500 right here. Again, it's going to go down after hours based on this Moody's downgrade. It is what it is. I don't think it really matters long term. Probably a lot of stocks will be affected by that, but it's more of an emotional reaction algorithmically versus anything structural. We actually do have someone who just joined backstage. Here we go. We get to be blessed with the honor of getting to listen to the founder of Matero Capital, Mr. Matt Money. Matt, what's up?
What's going on with Matero Capital? I love that. When's AK Media gonna buy?
When's AK Media? Yeah, no, I don't know when we're gonna IPO. Eventually we got to IPO.
Gotta do it. How are things, brother?
Things are good, man. How are things for you? It's been a hell of a week. Rocket Lab, I know we'll talk about that, but how are you just feeling in general about the state of the markets?
State of the markets, man. I was never shook, as good old Steve would say. I continued to buy throughout the pullback and throughout the rest of April, and approaching another significant milestone in the portfolio, which is good.
Were you surprised at how quick this recovery is within about a couple weeks?
I would say the speed at which the recovery happened, I would say, was definitely faster than I was expecting. I honestly didn't think we were going to go down as much as we did either. So being down to over 20% on the SPY, I thought was pretty surprising for me. But I thought we would hang around in the 560, 570 range on SPY a little bit longer. So the fact that we're already back up to the, within 20 points basically of all-time highs is pretty interesting. And, I was not expecting it for sure. So very surprised.
Okay. So you also got an interview this week by a pretty cool dude, Sir Peter Beck. I'm linking that right here in the chat. Everyone can check it out.
I appreciate that.
Not too bad, dude. Before we get into the interview and your thoughts on Rock Lab, why do you think they're embracing you and the retail community as much as they are?
I mean, we were there when the company was really worth $2 billion, right? And so now that it's north of $10 billion company, I think that they've recognized that not only do they need to reach out to the retail shareholder base, but also we ask pretty good questions. The analysts have been getting better, I will say. So they are taking a step up with respect to what's actually showing up at the end of the quarterly earnings calls. But before, man, it was like the most real depressing questions that you would get. So It is actually pretty interesting, though. I did post this on Reddit, and all four of us got dragged through the mud, man. The people on Reddit were not happy with our performance in this interview. So, but what I will say is, it was
But
very.
they were upset at the questions you asked or something?
Yeah. So to be fair, Vince asked basically if we would have some sort of celebratory party in Virginia to like celebrate Neutron launch, and the way he worded it maybe might have been a little bit more fanboyish than professional, but overall I thought it was handled in good stride by Pete and Adam. So by no means did I think it turned like they watch it. They know that we talk about it. I mean, but anyway, I think that they know that we ask good questions. We're all very curious, and I think they know that we'll get to some more of the bottoms of what they could talk about. I don't think that they're able to get into enough detail on some of the earnings calls that they want. And we all each have our own kind of wants and expertise. I'm really interested in the haste piece, basically the defense technology, hypersonics, and also the neutron piece of it as well, and making sure that the company is headed in the right direction, not just from a financial standpoint, but I mean they are literally second to none, except for SpaceX in that respect. And then you have the other folks on the call. Vince is just a great guy. He's enthusiastic about the stock and he's bullish, as they say. And Scott, he's really about the reaction wheels and the space components business. And so we each have our own particular thing that we like to invest in. Dave, of course, he's more of like an all-around space investor. And I'm kind of just like, I like the company I like. Yes, there's other great companies, but I kind of feel like I'm investing in, the best of the space companies available. So I'm not going to dilute that.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's pretty exciting. I only own shares of this stock because of you. I've, the fun part about having friends who are smart is that you can really trust, because any of your friends will be like, oh, you should buy this stock. But it's like, you can't trust them, right? But like when you have a friend who actually understands investing, it's cool because you can be like, all right, well, Matt, he understands investing. He understands the company. It's not like it means he's always going to be right, but he has done a lot of due diligence on this name.
Well, to be fair, 4 years ago, this was a complete gamble.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really until I started piling a lot of money in towards 2023 and early 2024 where I really started to get the conviction. And so it goes to show you that you really do have to babysit some of these things, because initially I had investments in a lot of different space opportunities. Momentous was one that got absolutely destroyed. Virgin Galactic at one point was one that got destroyed. So sometimes when you have some of these new industry companies coming out, you really have to just do your due diligence and really think about what is going on, who's the actual leader, who's actually showing up and actually executing, delivering. Because everybody and their mother is going to try to convince you that they are doing the right thing by the shareholders and they have the best technology. And all you really have is the numbers and words that are coming across the screen. So until you're actually able to see the deliverables, that's really what you need to kind of take into account. And so anyway, it just goes to show you, like, yes, it has been a 4 or 5 year investment for me, but it's really only been something where I'm like, okay, I'm both feet in the pool, ready for this over the past 24 months. It's been more of like an educational process. And probably if things weren't going in the right direction 24 months ago, I might have exited it, but I saw things going in the right direction. I continue to have great investor day presentations. That's another thing. If they didn't have great investor day presentations, they didn't bring me along. It's also another thing I probably would have divested. And to be fair, it's one of the reasons I got out of SoFi. So, anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, we'll talk more about SoFi, but $11 billion market cap. You still think this thing is like pretty cheap compared to SpaceX?
Compared to the SpaceX, it's obviously cheap. Granted, SpaceX is 7 years ahead in terms of where they are and launch capability. They're obviously launching folks for NASA. That's a great contract that they've gotten themselves there. But at the end of the day, I think that Rocket Lab's at the precipice of really having their SpaceX moment, as Dan Ives always like to say, like the moments that these companies sort of get to. And for SpaceX, that was 2017, right? And for Rocket Lab, that's going to be 2025, early 2026 when they launch this Neutron rocket. And people always say, well, the Falcon 9 already has so much market share and what have you. The Falcon 9 also costs $65 to $70 million, And so if you look at something like that, where the Neutron rocket comes out and it's $50 to $55 million, you're getting a 15-20% discount. And with that 15 to 20% discount, are you going to have the launch capability and the ability to actually send 20,000 kilograms into space? No, but not everyone needs 20,000 kilograms. You have pretty much 75% of the same capacity of a Falcon 9 rocket for 15% cheaper. You're going to go with the cheaper rocket, right? So especially if it's as capable and has the opportunity, and it also provides diversity and competition, because that's another piece. Is right now it's a monopoly, and very rarely do monopolies continue over the long term, right? Look at Amazon. Amazon's doing great. They own 50% of the US e-commerce business, but they don't own 75, 80% like they used to. So the thing is you're always going to have these other folks that really that come to the market, especially if the margins are there. They also have announced their Constellation piece. They haven't, and everyone's freaking out with Kuiper, Amazon Kuiper, Starlink, ASTS, Space Mobile with their Bluebirds. Everyone's all hyped up about the future, and really, Rocket Lab is putting themselves in a great position. They're actually acquiring a laser company that's based out of Germany. It's their entry into the European space market. And for those people that are unaware, I actually was able to ask this question directly to Peter Beck himself. I was like, hey, there's pros and cons associated with using lasers versus radio frequency, right?
Yeah.
And of course there is, right? I mean, there's security reasons. There's obviously, if you're using a laser, you can have more data transfer quicker. But radio frequency is also a wider spectrum, right? You can reach more people at once with radio frequency, but you also have the ability to interfere more easily with radio frequency. So who's to say that, what the solution that Rocket Lab is proposing and is developing, it's not like a random thought. They're actually developing this for the Space Development Agency, a sector of the Space Force, and have won over a $500 million contract, and anticipate winning more of those contracts, right? I think there's going to be thousands of satellites. What we're talking about is a $500 million contract for 18 satellites, and there's still to be thousands of satellites launched, and nobody's even gotten the contracts to launch them, right? So Rocket Lab could not only build the satellites themselves, but launch them. And you can't say that about many other companies except for SpaceX.
Do you think they'll be profitable by the end of the year?
End of the year, no. What I would anticipate by the end of the year is, this is tough. By the end of the year, I would anticipate they get very close to ops cash positive. They were actually close in the fourth quarter of being ops cash positive within $2 million. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. After you get the first few Neutron rockets off, profitability is on the table. I would say within the next 18 months, you will see a profitable quarter for Rocket Lab. And so that's kind of the part of the reason where I was talking about 18 to 24 months ago, I couldn't see that. And that was kind of where I was like, is this just going to be a money burning business for the next 10 years? Are we actually going to get to a place where you have a sustainable space business? And these guys are keeping it up. They're shrinking the amount of cash burn they're doing per quarter. And not only that, but from what we're seeing, the gross margins are going in the right direction. And really, the only reason why they haven't been profitable is because they're developing this $400 million rocket called Neutron.
Right.
And if you took that out of the equation, they'd actually be they wouldn't be, printing cash by any means, but they'd get to a place where, hey, if they're able to grow 30-40% per annum on a revenue basis, in the next couple of years, they're actually going to be generating a couple $100 million in profit. And that's nothing to scoff at when you're only a $10 billion company.
That's the thing I like about it. It's $10 billion is not a small company by any means, but compared to other stocks in the stock market, like 10 billion is something I think you could easily see as 20 billion and then eventually 50 billion over time. And you got in at 2-3 billion, right? So there's a lot of room for growth on shares here right now. Steve said, by the way, guys, 20 minutes. So we'll give him
Not
20
Steve,
minutes and then he'll
It's
pawn.
Steve's world, Amit. We just live in it.
That is true. I mean, literally this channel exists for Steve at this point. So
75,000 people here for Steve.
Steve, that's it. That's
6
what it
hours of you a day for the glimpse of potentially 15 to 20 minutes of Steve.
is. No, actually, like
Yeah,
legit.
people think I'm joking. I don't think we are.
You're not joking. It's
I like Steve.
Someone joined the other day in the comments and they're like, "Oh, I'm new here. Who the hell is the Steve guy?" I was like, "Steve is the reason for why this channel's here. That's why." SoFi. Why'd you sell your SoFi?
Hey man, I'll just be blunt. You know, I don't want to have any bad blood or anything. SoFi will do phenomenal, and the people that own SoFi will make money. I have no doubt. And you know, I wish them the best. But it's hard to be investing in a company that, when Chamath Palihapitiya brought it public via SPAC, said they were going to do all these brilliant technological sort of revolutionary things for fintech, and then you see Robinhood doing them.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, at what point do you just say, you know what? And I've ridden this donkey before, where it's like, you have a great CEO that says, just wait, we're working on this, we're working on that. It's like, I get it, my guy. Like, you probably are doing a great job. Like, and I have no doubt they are doing a great job. They're getting members in, they're getting the fund deposits in there. But I don't have a roadmap. I don't have an investor day. I can't hang my hat on anything other than, hey, we want to grow to 50 million members. It's like that doesn't help me, right? I'm trying to hang my hat on something that gives you guys some sort of moat. And anyway, I think SoFi's great, you know, and to be very frank, when I was sitting in a cabana drinking daiquiris with Tavis back in, what was that, last year in February, the stock was, you know, teetering on the edge of $7-8. I'm like, it makes sense, right? But when I sold it at 16, it was an easy 100% return, and I'm like, you know what? Do I like it? I do, and do I think it's going to be great? But I'd rather use, I don't know. It actually ended up becoming one of my largest positions. I don't have many positions, but I think it became a top 5 position at one point. It was like a $60,000-$70,000 position. I was like, I'm gonna put that money elsewhere, and that money's been put to good use.
Yeah. Look, I think they're undervalued. I think they can have momentum, but I think there is a little bit of a trust issue from investors in regards to the progress of the company. And the stock is still up 90% over the past year. So
yeah, it's a phenomenal company, man. Like, I don't want to take that away. It's just, when you have a portfolio of literally less than 10 stocks like I do, it's hard to compete.
Yeah. Because ultimately you're competing for that capital.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of my money's in the S&P, and if it's not, it's in Rocket Lab, Palantir, a few other, you know, competitive names.
For everyone wondering why the market's fading a little bit after hours, it's because we got downgraded from Moody's. Again, I really think this is a nothing burger. Yes, it's not good, but it is Moody's being afraid of deficit spending. The S&P 500 committee will probably, Standard & Poor's, they'll downgrade. Fitch will downgrade. I mean, these downgrades happen, and when they do happen, it's basically telling the credit markets you don't want to own this type of debt. But then it begs the question, whose debt do you want to own? And if you don't want to own the US debt, you want to go to Japan, which has a 240% debt to GDP ratio. Okay, you could go buy their debt. You want to go to Europe, that's not innovating at all. You can buy their debt. Like, at some point, it's like you have to be real with yourself. Whose debt do people want to own? They don't want to own Chinese debt or United Kingdom debt. They want to own the US debt. So I think it's a nothing burger, but nonetheless, we do have a problem with spending. Matt, speaking about that, what do you think Donnie T is going to do when it comes to spending? I mean, how do you think we're going to pay for the tax cuts that he wants to get to spur more growth into the country?
I don't know, man. I'm not smart enough to answer those questions. I'll just be point blank. I mean, the things that I'm liking out of this administration so far is Doge. I like the fact that we're respecting the Middle East. We're getting, you know, the kind of confidence that I think a lot of people said. I think it's the thing, you know, love him or hate him, I saw this beautiful graphic of how he was received by the Qatari kingdom with this. Did you see that Delta V shape flyover over Qatar?
Yep.
Talk about respect, right? I mean, I don't think that we very frankly had good respect worldwide. And I know the mainstream media likes to poke fun at Donald and how he doesn't get but dude, from what I hear,
Dude, no one respected Biden. Can we just be honest? Like, it's not
Yes.
even political. No one respected Biden because he did not speak. The guy was like, he could barely talk. Why would anyone respect him?
Yeah, and people can call me MAGA mad. They can call me whatever. That's fine. I get it. But at the end of the day, I just feel like we're getting a little bit more respect from what we kind of deserve than we have over the past 4 to 5 years. So to me, I'm okay with it. But in terms of how we're going to pay for things, I still think there's a lot of opportunity for growth in the economy. We have yet to hear so much about the business tax cuts, right? That was one of the things that Donald Trump continued to run on. Is he's going to well, not only that, he's going to continue the personal income tax cuts, which if the other administration got into power, I don't know if they would have continued that. But to me, back when they were put into place 2017, 2018, for me, that was like a $2,000 to $3,000 a year tax cut. I don't think people remember how big of a bonus that was. It was a couple $100 a month easily for me back into my pocket when Uncle Donnie, and that was when I was a brokey. Like now that I'm actually making probably twice as much as I was back then, it'd probably be on the order of a 5-figure impact to me on an annual basis. If we had to go back to standard deductions of 12,500 versus 25,000. And then also the differences in the tax brackets. So anyway, I don't have an answer for you. Like I said, I'm not the smartest guy when it comes to politics, but so far I'm just happy with what I'm seeing. And I always anticipated, love me or hate me, what I said on X, and whether or not you think I'm MAGA Matt, that's fine. I was very confident that the tariff bumps that we saw about a month and a half ago were temporary. And I think that everyone kind of jumped to the conclusion. The pendulum always swings, and then somewhere it finds its mean in the middle. And I think that that's currently what we're going through. But I think there's still going to be headwinds associated with it. I just want to put that out there. 5,900 on the SPY, we're within spitting distance of all-time highs. I don't think that that's the right place to be right now. I think there's another leg to drop, and it's going to be associated with tariffs. And so, or another foot to drop, whatever term you want to use. And so do I think we're going to go back to 4,800 on the S&P? I don't, but not particularly for tariffs. There could be other reasons, of course.
It's a little frothy right now, as you're saying, a little toppy,
a little bit,
which is fair. Yeah, I agree. Look, and again, I don't think it's political to say that when Biden went to Saudi Arabia in 2022, he did not get the fanfare of respect that Trump is getting. And he also did not bring over the types of investments that Trump is bringing. I mean, whether you like it or not, if we're getting a commitment of $2.5 trillion from the UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia, that's good for Americans. It's not even just good for shareholders. It's good for America in terms of job growth and overall investment and potential AI dominance that this country is looking for. So you got to give him some wins. I mean, I think a lot of people critiqued him in the tariff volatility of April. I think we can praise him if he gets some big money to come back into the United States. Okay, so here's another question that I think is really interesting as well in regards to the market. Big tech has been disrespected all year. It looks like big tech is coming back. One of the names that is still disrespected is the Googs. Are you shook on this one?
Never have been. I initiated my position back in, what was it? The high 80s, low 90s back in 2020-ish time frame. I'm upset I didn't buy shares before. And, I'm trying to get closer to 1,000 shares of this bad boy. But I just haven't been able to swing it as of yet. But I'm getting there, piece by piece. Whenever I have a little bit of chunk of change, I throw it at it. Actually kind of sad that it's back at 165. I was kind of hoping it would dip into the 140s. Not to say that I think it's expensive here. By no means do I think it's expensive. A couple months back, maybe 2 months ago, I wrote an article saying that I believe within the next couple of years, we should see $200 easily. And at one point we did see over $200 on Google. I think it's warranted. I think we're going to break a $10, $11 EPS either this year or next year. I forget. I don't have the numbers off of hand right now immediately. But Google never trades or should never trade for below a 20x multiple. I hear what people's concerns are with respect to search. I get it. But when you have the expanding margins that you do of their cloud business, expanding at the rate at which they are, and the growth rate of the top line revenue for their cloud business, it's unstoppable. It alone, as I think you have stated, and I think we stated the other night with me, you, Steve, on a chat, you could list several of these businesses, and they would each be $100 billion plus businesses. Sorry, I saw somebody wrote Costco. Grabbed my eye really quick. I don't know why. But YouTube alone, the YouTube TV piece, the YouTube Premium piece alone, the cloud business alone, the search business alone, the AI business alone. I mean, we're talking about $500 million businesses. Sorry, $500 billion businesses on their own. Then you have it under one piece. But then other pieces to say is the pieces worth more than the whole? And I think at this point they are, unfortunately. And it gets painted under a bad light. But I did like what you showed with Sunder.
Let me play that clip one more time. This is
Yeah.
a 30-second clip of him talking about their plan for innovating with AI.
I think we have the opportunity to create much better experiences for people. I think people use products like Gmail, Calendar, Docs, YouTube, Search, etc. So with their permission, taking that personal context into account, I think we can deliver much better experiences. We are working on that, but it's something on which we have to deliver. But I view that as one of the differentiated innovation opportunities we have ahead as a company, but it's something we are thoughtfully working on. We'll make progress there.
So do you think that's kind of the way they hedge back against it was a two-part question. How do they hedge back against the search potential headwind via more LLMs? And is the answer just personalization gets you to stay on Gemini and Google more than ChatGPT?
I think it's that a little bit, and I think it's also just making sure that people don't think that Google's sitting on their laurels. And I think that a lot of people still believe that Google is just a search company, but in reality, I think that they've been in the forefront. They are probably the closest to autonomous driving, whether or not you want to believe that Tesla's FSD is ahead or Waymo's ahead. But these guys have been in and around multiple cities driving autonomously with taxi drivers. The numbers a couple months ago were 200,000 rides a week or something like that, and climbing. I'm sure it's probably above 250,000 at this point. But I think that that's really it. Is they just need to show people that they're not some sort of old archaic search thing like Yahoo. That people have seen this before. AOL, Yahoo, Ask Jeeves, right? And I think that people still have that in the back of their minds, especially some of these investors that have money. And I think that they need to continue to innovate. They've seen what happens to Microsoft when they don't innovate. They've seen what happens to AOL, Yahoo when they don't innovate. And so they just want to make sure that Google, in my opinion, is being able to stay on top of their toes. And unfortunately, Google and Apple can kind of be put into their own buckets because the majority of their revenue comes from one big source, and a lot of it is due to a massive amount of market share. And so unless you continue to diversify, like as YouTube Premium continues to grow, as the cloud business continues to grow, they'll rely a little bit less on that search business. And I think hopefully people can stop looking at them like a dinosaur company.
Yeah, I agree. I've got my Google calls, and I'm hoping they can continue to get some momentum. 165.89. Also, I/O next week, I think, is going to be really fun because I think they're going to show off some really cool shit and stuff with voice, stuff with image search. I mean, like, their AI capabilities are going to be pretty impressive. Now, I am also very impressed by OpenAI's growth at almost 1 billion users. That's just unbelievable. But I don't know if that's a zero-sum game when it comes to Google either.
Do you mind if I read my conclusion from my article?
Yeah, let's do
I
it.
think it's pretty interesting. Talks a little bit about some of the things we talked about. So I think in conclusion, the tariff talk and uncertainty in the macroeconomic environment as we enter 2025 has led to an opportunity for long-term investors to buy future dividend achiever at a 20% discount, meaning Google. Alphabet's cloud division, while third behind AWS and Azure, continues to perform. Operating income surged 250% in 2024, and my expectation of a 75 to 85% lift in 2025 equates to an $11 billion operating income. This will have positive impacts on Google's or Alphabet's group operating margins, which will assist with the total group cash flow. With that cash flow, Alphabet remains to be one of the highest repurchases of their own stock. And the second year of dividend payouts will lift total shareholder returns to over $75 billion in 2025. Seeking Alpha and Street analysts forecasted a $9 EPS for 2025. That Alphabet deserves a $218 price target on the stock, my thought. I align with that. $215 price target on the stock, which is a 15% of my current price target of $185 when I wrote that back in August 2024. And that puts the 2025 multiple at 24x, not unreasonable and not forward-looking. That's for 2025, which I think is fair. Alphabet is a premium enterprise that is growing expansively year after year. I recently upped my position by 15%. This was back in March.
Yeah.
And for investors with a long time horizon, and the current dip represents the opportunity to invest in a technology conglomerate that focuses on being at the forefront of search, cloud, media, and AI. And then editor's note, of course, this article discusses one or more securities, and I do own shares in the stock.
I mean, it's pretty damn obvious that there is an undervaluation here. The only kind of two headwinds are search volatility and then the DOJ stuff. But as you said, even if you break them up, it might just make it more valuable with the sum of the parts if you have some shares of YouTube and Chrome instead of it just being Google itself. So I think there's definitely an argument right here for Googs. And you like Amazon too, but I think you like Googs a little bit more than Amazon at these prices.
Oh, at these prices for sure. I would tip my hat to Google at these prices. But I do have Amazon. I think my Amazon position, just based off performance, unfortunately, is a little bit better in terms of I think it's the third largest holding that I have. Although Dutch Bros is coming up there, man. Dutch Bros is coming up.
Dude, okay, hold on. We got to talk about this one because someone said last night that Buffett's buying Dutch Bros. I don't know if he would buy Dutch Bros over Starbucks, but I think it would be a hell of a move. This thing's growing like a tech company, 30%. Year to date, Dutch Bros is up, and I know you were early on this, 30%, so it's outperforming all the Mag 7. Still bullish on this one?
I think it's a little bit overheated here, but I think if you're looking 5 years down the road, they haven't even hit the East Coast yet. And I think that there's a piece now that I think with respect to the East Coast, I think a lot of people are getting tired of the politics that Starbucks is playing. Dunkin' Donuts, in my opinion, just doesn't have a very good product as they used to. I know that some people in New York and the Northeast might come after me. That's fine. Hit me in the DMs, start a conversation. We'll have it. But, I think that these guys are really showing customer service goes a long way. They're entering the consumer packaged good business. They're also entering a reshaped or re-imaged food service option. And so their margins are phenomenal. Even though they're raising their prices to offset labor costs on the West Coast, they're entering cheaper workforces as they go east. And so not only that, they're hitting $2 million annual unit volumes for each of their stores. They've just hit Florida. They're about to open in Georgia. They're making their way towards Ohio. I mean, these guys are really doing some really great stuff so far. In terms of where they're at in their company's maturity and profitability, they are profitable. They make about $250 million in EBITDA. But at the moment, just based off their growth rate, they are kind of spending that much to be able to expand stores. The thing that I like most is they're very transparent about what they do with respect to trialing out different things. And they'll show you, they're like, hey, we tried build to suit. We tried building our own shops. We got, in terms of returns, we got lower returns on building our own shops. And it's much cheaper and easier to have somebody else build the shop for us, build to suit, and we rent it from them for 15 years. Like that, they're open about sharing all those little nitty gritty things. And look, they're gonna have what's their hope is what they have. I'm trying to remember what their hope is. Their hope is to have 2,030 shops by 2030, and eventually get to 4,000 shops. They just hit 1,000 shops in the last quarter. So these guys are hoping to really grow into that, and I easily could see it being. I don't remember what the stock or the market cap is now. It's north of 10, I believe. I can actually just double check really quick, but I wouldn't be surprised if this hits a $20 billion market cap in the longer term. But right now it's at 12.
Do they have cookies?
They have muffin tops, and the muffin tops are absolutely phenomenal. Although, if I remember correctly, with the new food offerings, they might be changing what muffin tops they offer, but the muffin tops are phenomenal.
Well, speaking of Sweet Tooth, we got the guy that everyone's been waiting for in the background that they, as Matt said, wait 6 hours a day to get a glimpse of. Mr. Raspberry Chocolate Chip Cookie. What's up, Steve?
They're delicious.
They are so... I can't believe you called a coworker in just to tell me.
No, hold on.
How bad they were, how good they were.
One of my coworkers who has the office, a couple offices down, we were talking this morning, and I just happened to ask her opinion. She was like, of course they go together. And I was like, hold that thought. And I called him it because you know what? He's crazy and he's lost his mind. And I got to tell you, Russell Stover's has not lost their mind. They do raspberry and chocolate combinations all the time. And if it's good enough for Russell Stover's, it's good enough for me.
She was a real connoisseur, though, because she was talking about how it needs to be dark chocolates, the flavors, but like she gets like...
Oh, these are the conversations her and I have when we're not in meetings quite a bit.
She did respect my medium well take, though. She didn't hate my medium well take.
She did not respect your medium well
take. No,
she
said... You
should have seen her face.
She said that's... Well, she said that sounds like my husband. She said
right, and trust me, she did not respect it.
Oh, my God.
The fact that I had no idea how she eats steak, but I knew it was probably medium rare. And for her to say that, I mean...
Well, that's just because the majority of people eat medium rare. So it's, you know.
Yes.
But the majority of people are missing out on medium well.
No, that's not true. And I got to tell you, the meatballs I had today were so phenomenal. Veal, pork, and beef. I mean, it was the real trifecta. It's how a meatball should be made.
You really enjoy your lunch, bro. You make a day out of it when you get your lunch.
Listen, I have such stressful days every day. I got to enjoy something.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
I mean, think about this. The fact that I had to put a meeting on the calendar for 8 people at 4:30 and it lasted till about 5 minutes ago because that's the only time I can get everybody together. And everybody hates me for doing it, but it's like, I don't know what to tell you. All of our calendars are destroyed. 4:30 on a Friday. Sorry, you're getting on a meeting.
It's corporate. It's how corporate goes. But
and to help Steve out a little bit here, he's literally working in Manhattan, one of the best food places to eat in the entire globe. So
I would say the best food place because no matter what you want, you can get it and it's going to be great.
So if Hot Boy Steve, the myth, the legend, good looks entrepreneur extraordinaire, wants to get a little meatball sub or some chicky parm or some meatballs, a third. Steve gets what he wants.
Yeah, if I lived in New York, I think I would be tempted every day as well. It's just too much good food. Steve, I'll get your reaction right here to the headline that you probably didn't see because you were in a meeting.
No, and I'm about to have my yogurt right now.
Oh, well, everyone's gonna love
to know. The blueberry pomegranate?
That's the one we're doing. All right.
So good.
Okay, Moody's downgraded the U.S. debt from AAA to AA1. Stocks are down a little bit after hours. Do you think this matters?
No.
Okay, so I have the same reaction. Why do you think this doesn't matter either?
The U.S. is still the best debt to buy. And if the U.S. defaults on their debt, that means the world is done. So whether it's AAA or AA1, doesn't freaking matter.
I agree.
It does not matter on the slightest.
I think algos are going to react the way algos need to react, but this is absolutely a nothing burger. The debt to GDP ratio of Japan is 240%. Like, who wants to go buy their debt over the US debt? You know, like it's
Not to mention, do you know what our debt is backed by?
the dollar and the military.
The U.S. military.
Yeah.
And I got news for you. I would rather be buying debt backed by the U.S. military than the debt backed by the Japan military. Just
Also,
saying.
it's peculiar timing that after one of the best runs we've seen in a month, Moody's just so happens to come out and put out a downgrade, you know? Like, I feel like they were looking for a reason to take stocks down, and they got their reason, but I don't know if it matters much.
Whatever.
All right, so I was talking to Matt about the markets. He thinks we're a little bit toppy right now. We have maybe a leg down to go, and then we'll continue higher. What is your kind of general outlook on the markets right now?
We're going higher.
Okay, so you think we're just pushing higher?
I think there's a lot of catalysts. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a little bit of a sell-off, but in the next couple of months, I think we're going higher. I think the Fed's going to have to cut. I'm not buying that we're going to be even keel. It's ridiculous. And when Microsoft cuts, Meta cuts, and all these other companies are going to cut jobs, you have to lower rates. You need to spur economic growth from small and middle market companies. You need to spur entrepreneurship. You cannot have unemployment continuing to go up in a time when AI is coming for a lot of jobs. So I think they're going to cut. I think that's going to be a catalyst. We're not seeing anything crack in earnings either. So if earnings aren't cracking, I don't see how we're going to get a big sell-off. I mean, I don't know. People are going to take profits, but I think ultimately the bull case is going to be intact.
NVIDIA, reaction to basically a 10% move this week.
Made me roll.
Made you roll the covered calls.
Matt and I were talking about United Health before.
Yes, we were.
Dude,
It pumped today. It pumped today. None of us, I don't think any of us took a shot at this one.
No, we were talking about it. I mean, I think you can still take a shot on it. It may have bottomed.
Well, I didn't say this. Insiders bought today. Insiders bought 1.5 million shares of it. So that also, could be a reason why people are excited.
And here's what I was saying to Matt. For the Wall Street Journal to pump a headline, they're not doing that without having evidence, I wouldn't think. I mean, I think it would be hard to publish that headline, that story, if they didn't have evidence. But if there's real evidence, I don't think that United Healthcare, and I am not a lawyer, I don't think they can legally say that they are not aware of it if they are actually aware of it. They're a publicly traded company. I don't think that they can mislead shareholders. So one of them is incorrect at the moment. And if insiders are buying, maybe the Wall Street Journal got bad information.
Yeah, I agree. Or some people were saying it was a hit piece, and there were shorts that paid the Wall Street Journal to put out
Once
that
again,
stuff.
they got it. Maybe they got it wrong.
Yeah.
And if they did, this stock's down 50% in the past month.
And it's the largest healthcare company in the United States. So
50%. It's got a 248 billion market cap now, and its free cash flow is about 25 billion. So it's trading at around 10 times free cash flow. That is really cheap.
Yeah, obviously, look, there could be some more headlines that take it further down, and this was a nice recovery today, but still, it's cheap. It's definitely cheap. Okay, so
all this recovery.
Well, yeah, at least up from the lows a bit, 15% up from the lows. Here's a question. I didn't get to ask Matt's opinion yet. We're not having Palantir Weekly tonight, but triple digits. Well, I can't make it tonight. Also, there's not a lot of news this week.
What do you mean you can't make it?
What's her name?
No, there is
What do you mean you can't make
I
it?
just can't make it tonight. That's all it
What do
is.
you got going on?
I got nothing going on. I just can't make the show.
Then why can't you make it? If you got nothing going on, why can't you make it?
Also, there really was no
You
news.
see how he's trying to change the subject?
No, all I'm saying is there was no news this week. So, no,
is she prettier than me?
Okay. In all seriousness, I genuinely am tired this week, and there's no news. So.
You're in your 20s.
Steve, I speak 10 hours a day straight on a Friday at 11 p.m. with no news this week. I don't want to speak.
Go get a coffee.
Anyway.
Go get some red meat. Get those test levels up.
Dude, that's going to be big for Hims. That'll be big for Hims. Oh, by the way, I'm going to announcing right here. I'm going to be on the Hims House pod on Sunday. So I'll be doing that pod on Sunday. And we'll be you guys will get to see me talk about Hims. But no, in all seriousness, there's just not a lot of news this week. So I don't want to force an episode if there's not news.
What are you talking about? There's not a lot of news.
What's the news on Palantir this week? Besides the stock?
on the Middle East. There's a lot of news.
Okay, what's the next headline besides Carp?
The next headline is they go Saudi Arabia gangbusters.
Oh, that's not. You can't talk an hour about Carp saying AI is good. Like that's not. There's not news this week. It is what it is. It's okay.
There's some verticals. There's some verticals there.
There's definitely some verticals, but also Arnie still can't make it either. So I think he'll be back next week. Then we'll all four get back together and do it. Anyway, the point is, what is your reaction to triple digits basically being normalized on pound? I mean, not normalized, but I mean, it's there, and it looks like it's not going away anytime soon.
I don't know if we can say normalized yet.
Yeah, I agree.
It's certainly getting to that point. I think it's going to go down. That's just me. I don't think it can sustain this.
You don't think so? What, you think it's going back to 80? Like you don't think it can hold?
Yeah, I don't think 50 or 60 is going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if the normalized range is 80 to 100. It's just nothing in the history of the market has sustained 70 times sales. And this isn't even 70 times sales. This is now, what is it, 85 to 90 times sales?
Maybe a little bit more than 85, 90 times.
Yeah,
sales. Maybe a little bit more. Just a little bit more.
more.
$305 billion market cap, not the worst in the world, but okay, Matt, your reaction. You agree with Steve? You think it's coming back to 80? Like, how are you thinking of stock price right now?
I really don't know, man. I mean, this thing is, we know it's overvalued, but at the same time, we all see the value of it, right? I mean, just like you stated, we saw literally Alex Karp meeting MBS in Saudi Arabia and making deals specifically around the future of AI, the future of collaboration, and opening up the United States for more business opportunities worldwide. It's hard to go and say the stock is going to drop like a rock when you're seeing stuff like that, right? And completely new verticals. I mean, yes, we know that Palantir has been helping with respect to getting things done in Israel, but at the end of the day, we haven't really seen it in some of the more the Arab countries. And so I think this is a bigger deal than maybe has gotten publicity over the past week. And to me, I think that this could lead to, in 24 months, a whole nother tranche of potential government revenue coming through. International government revenue, which is definitely something Palantir needs.
So I so agree with what Matt said. And Steve, I want your reaction. Like when you say it's not sustainable and it has to come back down, and then you see this on the screen, it's hard for me to think that the market fades this, even if the valuation, I agree with you, is up there.
Yeah, he's shaking hands. He's in the right place, right time, and he's going to be making more deals. But even if he gets to $6 billion, let's just say they get to $6 billion of revenue this year, okay, which they're not guiding for. But let's just say they outdo everybody's estimates. At $6 billion revenue, it's still trading at 50 times sales. I mean, at some point, people are not buying this. At some point, it's going to come back.
Or flatline or something. I don't know. But I've been thinking that since 65,
I get it. I've been thinking
bucks.
that too, but no company in history has ever stayed up in this type of trajectory. That doesn't mean they haven't gone higher over time, but no company has sustained an infinite shot up. And the little blip from the tariffs is not the leg down because everything went down.
So let me ask Steve, this is my show now. No, I'm just kidding. So let me ask do you think that really all we need is a slight slowdown in terms of year-over-year growth? Like obviously we saw 39% year-over-year in the first quarter, which was massive. I didn't think we would get there. We did. So I think that was a large part of it. Do you think that if we see a print of closer to 30, 35%, that we immediately see some sort of top or massive sell-off the next day? Because I think at the moment, 40 people are thinking 40% is on the table. If we don't get there,
if you get 33% year-over-year growth in revenue, there's going to be a problem.
I think if we have any earnings that misses expectations, it's going to be bad. We are priced for beyond perfection.
Yeah, and think about this. All that revenue growth, and they met expectations on earnings. Like, I don't understand why people are so infatuated with revenue. Like, Palantir met expectations on earnings. There are companies like Meta that are blowing earnings out of the water, in addition to blowing revenue out of the water. But Palantir met expectations. Let's not forget, 30 to 40% of their net income came from interest. And
I don't know why that matters, though. That's not.
It matters because when the Fed starts cutting rates,
if they cut rates,
they're going to start cutting rates. Then it's going to be harder print for them to generate the same earnings,
unless they increase their operating margins.
Unless they increase their operating margins, the operating margins are already sky high. There's not much to increase. You're not talking about a company that has 20% operating margins.
Well, on a GAAP basis, they do, and I think they could increase that. But look, regardless of their net income, they are expensive as hell. There's no way to sugarcoat it. My question is less about valuation, because I agree with you. Like I've agreed with you for a while. My question is more about sentiment that is keeping the stock.
Sentiment's not going to change. Sentiment. This has got a bigger cult following than Tesla ever had.
I don't know if that's true yet.
It's true.
Tesla is worldwide. Palantir is.
So let me play this out and forward. They're guiding for $936 million next quarter, right? I think that's feasible. I think where we're going to see a potential inflection is really the movement towards the beginning of next year. If you take the first quarter earnings of $883 million, and you're saying we have to get to a 40 print in terms of growth, that's $1.25 billion in revenue next quarter.
Yeah.
Not next quarter, 1Q next quarter, next year.
Yeah.
That's tough, right? Maybe they hit it, maybe they don't, but like that's tough. And that's if you want to grow at 40%. So if you take this 935 and you say that has to hit for the second quarter, 935, 2Q 2025, and that has to hit a 40 print, that's 1.3. So I mean, let's just take that out. That means in fiscal year 2026, you're saying you have to have over $5.2 billion in terms of revenue, and that's being conservative. That's a big jump. That's going from 4 to 5.2.
If they were trading at something like 15 or 20 times sales, I wouldn't be saying that. But you're trading at such a high valuation, I think you have to put up ridiculous growth in order to sustain that.
That's true.
Especially look at CoreWeave just put up. All right. Now, people may move into CoreWeave or move into positions like that if they're able to put up crazy growth numbers. I just think Palantir's got to sustain a ridiculous growth rate based on the valuation that they're at and the fact that they generate basically no profitability compared to companies that they are bigger than.
I agree. And look, there is a world in which 2026 comes and the growth flatlines, which obviously would be, not the story the market wants to see. And you can't, it doesn't have room to inflect. And then if the stock's at 137, 140 at the time, it could come crashing back down. I mean, like this happened with Tesla in 2023. So we've really just got to hope the trajectory of growth that the market is assuming they will be able to capture is something they capture. But then you have Mariana from Bank of America saying 150.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So you have the analysts saying, nope, they're going to be the company that takes the
Some
market.
analysts.
What'd you say?
Some analysts.
Some analysts believe that, well, to be fair, Mariana's been right, you know?
Agreed. Her and Dan Ives have been right the entire time. Not putting anything past that. The bottom line is, are we really going to see Palantir at 500 billion generating $1 billion of net income? I mean, are we really going to see that? Because that's the trajectory we're at.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, no other company in the history of the stock market has gone that crazy. Okay. And you start talking about where they're at now, you have to put them up against companies like Adobe, SAP, Cisco, and Salesforce. They get to 500 billion. Now you got to put them up against companies like Oracle, Broadcom. I mean, at some point, it's beyond they're an AI company and their software is powering things, because then they're starting to get into Berkshire Hathaway territory. I mean, it is so mind-blowing.
You would say the best case is the stock stays in a range for the next couple of years and allow them to keep growing into it.
I would not, if it doesn't sell off, that's fine. But if it stays at the 100 to 130 range for the next 3 to 5 years and grows into this valuation, I won't have a problem with that by any means. If it keeps going up, the crash is going to get worse and worse, because ultimately it's going to come. This stock will not, I shouldn't say will not. If it gets to 200 or 250, you don't, within the next year or two, you don't think that that's going to crash and burn? I mean, getting to 600-700 billion market cap is not far off from Berkshire.
No, I agree. So to me, it really, really depends on the growth. Like, they have less than 800 customers. If that 800 turns into 8,000 customers in the next 5 years, then I think they could get to that 700.
I'm not saying they can't.
But they've got to really get there, right? They've got to put up that type of growth. So every quarter, we're going to find out kind of how that is progressing.
And the thing that always continues to bother me is, just based off of what we've seen and the impact that Palantir has had, the fact that they're going to be making just about $4 billion in revenue is mind-boggling to me. It seems like a company that is generating way more impact than $4 billion a year. So it's just kind of confusing. And I think it goes back to how much they're focusing on infiltrating the market share and getting their foothold in different industries and making sure that they are the premier enterprise software for the modern enterprise. And if that's really the case, and they actually do start to turn on the drip of actually getting revenue through the door and actually scaling that revenue, I think it's going to be way more than $4 billion. I mean, we're talking about $15-20 billion of revenue within the next decade, potentially, if that's really what's being shaped up here. And at a 40% sort of margin on a net basis, I mean, that's a crap ton of money. But is that still equating to a $300 billion market cap? That's where you're kind of saying that's pretty tough, you know? Like, I get it. It's a great company. It's having a lot of impact, but I think the market price that it is getting right now is still 5 years plus, at a minimum 5 years plus out there. So unless there's some sort of step change in the revenue, it's hard to justify this. And the fun part about this is, 3 years ago, we were not having these problems, right? We're arguing that the stock is too overvalued. And literally 3 years ago, we were saying that it wasn't getting any bid at all. And everybody was leaving it for dead on the side of the road. So all three of us, I just want to iterate to everyone, are extremely bullish on the competency and the execution ability that Palantir has. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we speak for all three of us there. It's just the fact that you're trading at a $300 billion market cap is just crazy.
It is an amazing company, and I am so proud to be a shareholder because of what they do and how embedded in the military industrial complex they are, and the fact that they are helping keep our soldiers safe. There's so many good things that they're doing that I'm so proud of for the company. Just because I feel that this is one of the most incredible companies I've ever seen does not mean that I'm going to look past the valuation that they're trading at. it is not sustainable right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The one other component to this is the options market. So again, every day Palantir has been in the top 5. Let's check today of options that were traded today. They were in the top 7. You had UNH pop up there. And I still think there's a lot of people that just literally look at it as something to trade, not something to own. And as a result, the liquidity that's entering into the name could keep it elevated. I mean, realistically, dude, Tesla is not worth 800 billion right now, based on the earnings that we've seen.
Can I just say that your chat is awesome?
I know which comment you're laughing at.
No, there's a new one. Yes. Oh my God.
Dude, the way you shake yogurt got people
that's hilarious.
Got people excited. But my point is, if Tesla's always been an overvalued company in comparison to what the fundamental metrics are, I don't know if Palantir has to be a undervalued or a fairly valued company ever. You know, especially if there is so much interest in the stock, even if there's not interest in like the long-term people wanting.
But like Tesla, expect the volatility.
Exactly.
Like seeing it drop to the $67 like we did earlier.
Bring up
was
the
it
10-year
76,
chart,
67, whatever it was.
You know, and there's a good point. I'm bringing it up. The one thing we haven't seen as shareholders is a independent drop on Palantir from the market, but Tesla's had a lot of those.
Yeah, I mean, on a 10-year chart, this thing in 2021, and then the big one, that big one, the next big one, you've had a lot of big drops. And the first one was during a growth phase. The first couple were during a hyper growth phase with Tesla.
Yeah, Palantir had the 2021 one, but that was the market. They had the COVID one, that was the market. And then they had
the tariff one, which was the market.
So when does Palantir get something that's outside of the market? I think is the real question.
Some of these are outside the market.
I agree.
Now bring up Amazon, then bring up Meta. Do a 10-year for both.
Yeah, Amazon's at a couple.
See, what do you want that you're using Max?
I'm just using Google.
Can you go to Seeking Alpha and just do 10-year, please?
Yeah.
Because it distorts when you go Max. And it helps show recent times. Like Amazon's had some dips and some choppiness. I mean, even Apple, which it has been something that has kept the market afloat a lot of times, that's seen some dips too. And then Meta, look at what happened. Meta fell when no other company was falling.
I agree, but so my question is, when does that happen to Palantir if that does? Because Palantir has not had an aggressive dip that has not been macro-based yet. And I don't know if they will, unless they.
I think within the next year. Like, I think if we don't see we don't start seeing those 1.2, 1.3 billion dollar revenue prints next year, and if that's not the forecast, then that's going to be tough because I think people are now saying 30% revenue growth, between 30 and 40% revenue growth is a given. If you don't start to break the 40% growth rate basis, it's gonna be tough. And even a print of 935 in the second quarter might actually be contentious because that's 38%. That's a slowdown in terms of year-over-year growth from the first quarter of 39%. So people might see that and be like, they might have I think that people will still be bullish, but they might have like a stutter step in terms of like, I thought we were hitting to 40, right?
My conspiracy is that we could have had 40% growth last quarter, but we showed 39% to get to 40% in Q2 to show that quarter-over-quarter growth. Because it's one more percent. You don't think they could have got another 20 million? And I think they understand narrative-wise they need to keep beating and raising. But I agree with you. We got to get to 40% at minimum in the next few quarters to keep this going.
Can I have a thought process around why I honestly think the stock may have run to the extent that it has? So obviously we have a great retail shareholder base. That's why people watch Palantir Weekly. It's why a lot of people watch Amit's channel. That's why a lot of people follow me as well on X and YouTube. So very appreciative of that. I think, and this is where I actually want to ask Steve a question towards the end after I go off a little bit of a tangent. That's what I'm known for. I think everyone recognizes this will one day be $1 trillion business, right? I think that people recognize $1 trillion enterprise. So to my thought, when it has become institutionally investable, joining the S&P 500, NASDAQ 100, GAAP profitability, institutions said, okay, got it. We need to be involved in this. Let's get our feet into the door. Hold on to it as much as you can. And I think that's what happened, right? Who cares if you get in at 100 billion and it's going to $1 trillion over the course of 20, 30 years if you're an institution, right? You're an institution. You're going to be holding the stock because that's what you do. You buy these things to put them into ETFs and have the opportunity to then sell it to your sell side investors, right? That's just all that kind of happens. My question to you guys is it even more than that? Do people think that this will be one day $3 trillion company, which I've never really explored mentally? I've always been to a place where when it came on the market, 150 to 250 billion, 2 to 3 years ago, I said, okay, it could be half a trillion. Now I'm like, it's $1 trillion. I get it. I can see that. I've never really explored what's north of $1 trillion for this company. And maybe I'm underselling the fact that people might actually think, and I know I've said this in the past, that this will be the most important enterprise software, more so in terms of the actual software business than Microsoft. Well, Microsoft's a $3 trillion business. I'm not saying that the enterprise side of what Microsoft develops is $3 trillion. I'm just saying the enterprise of software itself is probably worth $1 trillion and a half. So if it's bigger than that and they're able to really connect the dots, could this really be a $2 trillion business? And could that be why you've seen the aggressiveness and the institutional investors really jumping in to say, let's own 50% of this. Who cares if it's $150 billion? It's going to $2 trillion. So we're still going to get that, 10 to 15x over that time period because it's going to grow into the $2 trillion market cap. And then you'd have the buybacks and everything like that will only help exacerbate that.
I have a question for you, Mr. Matt. 3 questions. Yes or no? Do you think Palantir will reach 170 billion of revenue in the next 20 years?
I could say 10 years. No. 20 years. I honestly have no idea.
Okay, fair. We'll do 10 years. Do you think they'll reach 170 billion of revenue in 10 years?
I do not.
Okay. Do you think that they will reach 66 billion of net income in 10 years?
I do not.
In a single year, not all 10 years combined?
I do not.
Okay. And do you think that their company will be producing $96 billion in cash from operations in a single year within the next 10 years?
No. But can I ask what multiple you're putting to be able to back calculate those?
So there is only one company in the history of the stock market that has gone past $1 trillion that is a pure software company. Do you know what that company is?
Microsoft?
Meta Platforms. They're the only company that has ever reached $1 trillion that is a pure software company. Microsoft has many products that are not software. Same with Apple, same with Alphabet, same with Amazon, same with Tesla. Meta's the only one. Now, those are the numbers that Meta has put up in the TTM. They're not anywhere near 2 trillion. So,
but
they don't have Corp with the cool hair. I get it.
They don't have the ontology. You know what I'm saying? They don't. No, look, it's a good point. It's hard to get to $1 trillion or 2 trillion.
Oh, pull up Noah Breaks' thing.
Noah Breaks. What did he say?
It's like 15 messages ago.
Did you do the same thing for Facebook back in 2012? Meta back in 2012?
I can tell you, Noah, that I'm a shareholder since the IPO.
Oh, Meta?
Yep.
Look, here's my thing. I think there are employees at the company that believe they are going to be above $1 trillion company. And I think the company is motivated to take this higher. Now, those numbers are real. And I don't know if in the next 10 years they'll be able to put up those numbers. But I do think if they take the market, as Karp has been saying, there will be some pretty good numbers, even if it's not exactly that. And that still might create a multiple that's aggressive just because people are that excited.
Yeah, all I'm saying is for them to go from 300 billion to 500 billion. Right now, they're in the top 20 biggest companies in S&P, aren't they?
Top 10 biggest tech companies.
Forget tech, just biggest companies. They're in the top 20 or so.
Let me
At
check.
300 billion, top 25.
30 is probably right, but top 20 might be tough.
S&P 500. Company market cap, Palantir is literally 31, number 31.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more room to go on the upside when you start talking about what the top 15 companies are. There's not many companies that are over 500 billion market cap. And the companies that are putting up such ridiculous numbers. Palantir is going to be nowhere near those numbers in 3 to 5 years. Nowhere near them.
But the thing is, they're nowhere near that right now, and they're still getting this multiple. So
all I'm saying is I don't think it's going to be able to be sustained, this multiple. I think they can grow into the multiple, and they don't have to sell off. But going from here to 500 billion or 600 billion without ridiculous expansion, just the numbers don't compute.
So let me ask a question, because that's exactly the question. Let me ask, when I say I think that Palantir Event should be $1 trillion company, do you think I'm a crazy person?
No, because I think it would be $1 trillion company also. I just don't think it's happening in 3 to 5 years.
No, 3 to 5 years. I'm with
you and
you.
me are on the same platform where I think we're both thinking 10 to 20 years. It has the potential to be a $1 trillion company.
Yeah. So let me ask, where do you?
By the way, real quick, Palantir is 26, number 26 in the S&P.
Jesus.
Yeah. So keep that up, real quick. They're bigger. I mean, when you go from them to the next couple,
they're right next to Salesforce too.
Yeah,
Compare it. It's funny.
They're bigger than freaking Chevron. Like, they're bigger than Chevron. Like, come on.
Dude, Palantir's product is straight gas. You know what I mean?
No, Chevron's product is straight gas.
Okay, Matt, what were you saying? What was the question you were going for?
My question to Steve is so we both agree at $1 trillion, but where does the buck stop? $1.5 trillion, $2 trillion? You don't have enough data yet.
Depends where the market overall goes. If the market's going to double in the next 7 years, as it has been 5 to 7 year periods, it doubles. You're going to have 10, $15 trillion companies. So at that point, when you have 10 to $15 trillion companies, is it crazy to think that Palantir can reach $1 trillion valuation? No, not at all. But once again, they need to grow into a much bigger company. Now, you look at something like AT&T, which has been left for dead, but it's been catching a bid, and it's up 60% this year. The market cap's $196 billion, okay? This is a company that does $123 billion in revenue.
Yeah, but Steve, no one cares about AT&T. You got to remember.
Once again, it's about profitability and
revenue. No. It is about, do investors want to put money into
I understand
AT&T?
What's cool is not cool. I get that. But when you talk about should a company be trading at that level, you have companies that are doing $123 billion in revenue and tens of billions in profitability that are smaller than a company that's doing a freaking 40th of the revenue.
Yeah, but that's up
and
to
a
the
20th of the profitability.
That is
it's
your subjective opinion on what you think a telecommunication company that's not growing should be worth.
It has nothing to do about what sector they're in. It has
yes, it does. No, you can't. You've been saying SoFi is not a tech company, so it's absolutely
not a tech company. It's a bank.
But so as a bank, they get a worse multiple, right?
But they shouldn't. But banks should not be valued because they're banks. They should be valued on profitability. They should be valued on a number of things. But profitability is a standard. Like, a company should not be more valuable that does a 20th of the profit than a company that does 20x the profit. There's no world where that makes sense.
No, but someone downloading Robinhood today and getting into the world of the investing, they don't give a shit about AT&T. They really care about Tesla, NVIDIA, and Palantir.
I get that.
And that matters when you're coming up with your analysis on which one.
I get that, but at the same time, Robinhood is not a bigger company, but they care about Robinhood. Robinhood should not be a bigger company than an AT&T or a Verizon, and they're not.
Why shouldn't Robinhood be a bigger company than AT&T or Verizon?
Have you seen the amount of revenue they do compared to the other two?
I'm just saying, Robinhood's growth rate and their trajectory and their TAM and their ability to tap into a market is more exciting, which does matter in the market. That's why Tesla gets the multiple it gets. Then, like, why is Microsoft 3 trillion trading at the multiple that it's trading at, but Tesla's at 1 trillion? Because people think Tesla can go to 10 trillion with Optimus, and Microsoft maybe can get to 6 trillion with Copilot. It's all subjective, is my point.
People do not do fundamental analysis. People do not look at financial sets, and they are investing on stories, which is fine. That's always been the case, but not as much now. It's so much more. Now, it is absolutely crazy to think that Microsoft does not deserve this valuation. Look at the
No, I'm not saying that.
Microsoft
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if they had Tesla's valuation, Microsoft would already be at 10 trillion. But there's a reason
Yes.
investors don't give them that multiple, because they don't see the potential of Microsoft.
People are giving Tesla the multiple because of the potential of that box.
Correct. And FSD. Yeah. It's all based on narratives. And like, what 25-year-old wants to invest in Microsoft over the future of self-driving? Like, there's a lot more people that are willing to take a risk.
But once again, what somebody is interested in versus the actual financials of a company are two different things.
But what they're interested in definitely impacts the way the stock.
And I'm not saying it doesn't, but what I am saying is a company that is doing less than 3 billion in revenue should not be a larger company than a company that's doing 200 billion in revenue. Even if their growth rate is 100%, it's still going to take them decades to get to that level of revenue.
No, I just disagree. Why do we care about a company's revenue compared to another company's revenue on an absolute basis? Why are we not looking at their rate of growth, their story, their narrative, their TAM?
Because the companies that have already got there have already experienced that rate of growth. They've already proven it. They've already done it. Look at Salesforce. Salesforce was the darling. Salesforce was doing that same revenue as Palantir. But guess what? Now they're a much bigger company. They're putting up a tremendous amount of money. They're buying back a tremendous amount of shares. People seem to forget that they're a tech company that already did what Palantir's doing.
No, but hold on. They already did what Palantir's doing, and they've been rewarded with their stock up 7,000% all time.
Had they been rewarded, they're a smaller company than Palantir, yet their revenue and profitability is light years ahead of it.
Because
And
they're not
their
growing
revenue
at the
is
same rate.
growing at a year-over-year basis of more revenue than Palantir generates.
Isn't Salesforce growing at like 25-30% per year, Steve?
Their revenue, what did Salesforce's revenue grow by?
Look, my point is not
to put it in perspective, Salesforce's revenue last year was like 38 billion and Palantir's was like 3.1. And now Palantir, which is now probably 8% of the revenue, maybe even less, of Salesforce, is worth more than with comparable net income margins, etc. Right?
So Salesforce grew its revenue, and keep in mind, this is what people need to understand. Business 101, it's a lot easier to grow when you're a smaller company than when you're a bigger company. It's more impressive for bigger companies to grow at good growth rates than smaller companies to scale at a hyper level. Salesforce grew their revenue from a $35 billion revenue base by 8.7% year over year, which was just over $3 billion. They grew their revenue by more revenue than Palantir generated in the entire year. Yet Palantir is a bigger company by market cap because people think it's cool. Like, that's a ridiculous way to invest.
Okay, so a couple things. I am not defending Palantir deserves to be worth more than Salesforce. First of all, I am providing a counter argument on why you could theoretically understand that. Number two, this absolute basis of looking at pure revenue versus growth rates to me is weird. Now, I'll get your point. Even if Palantir is growing 50, 60%, the lack of revenue, the lack of profitability compared to just how much Salesforce is putting up is not something that warrants the multiple. I get it. But if investors don't see Salesforce becoming the behemoth that they were back in 2000 up until 2015, and they see Palantir entering their growth phase of 25% compounded, 40% compounded for the next decade, that will create a delineation of how investors perceive one stock versus the other.
Bring up the financials. Look at the past 10 years of revenue for Salesforce. And look how much their revenue has grown by.
Steve, every time you do this, you look at the numbers and you're not listening to my argument. I
I'm
agree with you on the
exactly
numbers. There's no disagreement here. There's nothing to disagree on. My point is someone who's 30 is not thinking that a CRM is going to matter in 10 years as much as what Palantir is doing.
But they may not even know what a CRM is.
Well, that's my point, Steve.
But hold on. When they were an $8 billion company, revenue-wise, they grew the next year by 25% to $10.5 billion. Then at $10.5 billion, they grew the next year by 26% to 13.28. Then guess what happened that year? That was in 2020. They grew to 17.1 billion. Their revenue growth rate was 28.7%. The growth rates kept growing and their revenue kept growing. And then what happened? The next year they grew by 24%, 4.15 billion. The next year they grew by 24.7%, 5.2 billion in growth. This is a company that continuously shatters growth numbers. They've already done what Palantir's done, and they continue to do it.
Well,
yet they're trading at a lower multiple and a lower market cap. All I'm saying is that the business side of it does not make any sense for Palantir's valuation. None.
I have never disagreed with you that
I know you haven't. I'm
the
just
numbers
saying.
justify $300 billion. My point is just when you say it doesn't matter what sector they're in or it doesn't matter about narratives, I'm like, no, dude, in this next generation of investors, like
it absolutely does. In this generation of investors, it absolutely does. And people want to invest in certain things. I completely get that. But that doesn't change the fact that every time we have seen this happen, it has not ended well.
And I agree with that. And I would not be surprised to see Palantir back below 100. And that would make the valuation a lot more reasonable for a lot more people. I'm just saying, if the market's giving it a bid right now, the market ends up usually, the market is always right. And if the market is wrong right now, the stock will fall, right? Like, and the market will be right. But I think there's people saying, I don't care about a CRM. I don't even know what a CRM is, but I see this cool guy Karp putting up 40% growth rates, talking about how they're powering the West. And that's something they're attracted to. Just like they're attracted to Elon saying we're going to have billions of bots. Now, he might be way off on the timeline, but he will collect that capital in the short term because of his ability to communicate that story.
Look, I could not agree with you more. It just annoys me that people don't look at this from a business sense, because if Salesforce does not slow down and they continue to grow by billions every year, what's going to happen when Palantir eventually gets to, say, 20 billion of revenue, which is going to happen at some point? Maybe it happens in 5 years, maybe it doesn't. But how are we going to value Palantir when they get to 20 billion of revenue? That's a fraction of revenue that other companies are generating. And once again, companies like Salesforce got there years ago.
Yeah, but again, you know, the interesting thing here is this is not retail. The types of moves we've been seeing in Palantir, we know to some extent is institutional. So if that's the case, then all the smart money in the world is just stupid for buying this stock at 300 billion or 250 billion, whatever they bought it. I don't know if they're stupid. I think they're just seeing a longer trajectory of growth. And at 20 billion, look, maybe they were worth like $1 trillion or something, which you would say, hey, that multiple makes no sense. But the multiple right now makes no sense. So like, if it just always doesn't make sense because investors are always willing to, I mean, does Bitcoin make sense at 100,000? Does it actually make sense for it to be $100,000?
Bitcoin doesn't make sense at $1.
Oh, so but investors are willing to pay 99,999 more.
I get it. But here's the thing: they think they can make money on it. That's the only reason people are buying Palantir, is they think they can make money.
No, I disagree. I think people are buying Bitcoin even at 100,000 because they're looking at our debt ceiling. They're looking at Moody's downgrading U.S. debt, and they're like, dude, if Trump and Doge can't fix this shit, no one's gonna fix it.
You study this stuff day in and day out. The average person that's buying Bitcoin does not know where the debt ceiling is.
Am I not average?
That's a good point. It's a good point. It's a good point. I think you are underestimating the level of intelligence some people have. Lynn Aldrin, who is a big Bitcoin influencer. No, just listen to my point. She has been arguing that the way the United States is debasing fiat currency is fundamentally structurally unstable, and the answer is Bitcoin. And
I don't think a lot of people are looking at the economics. They just think it's going to be, they're going to be able to make money on it.
I'm just saying,
with intelligence,
Raoul
I think they see a way to make money.
Raoul Paul Michael Saylor, Lynn Aldrin. There's a lot of influencers who are very intellectual. They're not just trying to pump the coin. They have written a lot of books on explaining the antagonisms that exist inside of the U.S. economic system. And as a result, people are saying, screw it. I don't want to invest in fiat currencies. I want to invest in Bitcoin. I think the same could be said around a Palantir or a Tesla, whereas that people want to invest in a thesis that they believe will play out over just pure numbers. That's my point. And that means that means those assets can be elevated for a much longer time than we think.
At some point, people are still buying ownership in a company. And at some point, companies are still competing against other companies. And at some point, they're still reporting revenue and earnings. It's just, we've seen how the market has valued every company today. Every company. We see what it takes to get to $1 trillion. We've seen 6 cases of it. What it takes. I don't think Palantir is going to be the one to defy it where they get to $1 trillion without generating a certain amount of revenue and profitability. I mean, United Healthcare has never got there. Exxon's never got there.
So let me ask the opposite way. If not Palantir, then who?
If not Palantir, then who? What?
I mean, we all know that Palantir is legitimately a generational type company that is fixing the West and really has the great values. If it wouldn't be Palantir that would be able to do that achievement, breaking $1 trillion with $20 billion net income, whatever your criteria is, Steve, 50x multiple on 20 billion being $1 trillion, whatever you want to call it, who would do it?
Real quick. Oh, thank you for the $100 super chat. He says Bitcoin is the future. Sorry, Steve. So sorry, Steve. But two, real quick before Steve talks, we are getting some red, and that's because of Moody's, guys. That is because of Moody's. So that's why you're seeing the fall off.
Are they in a bad mood?
I already made that joke. I would have laughed, but I already made that joke. So
where's your soundboard? Don't you have the DJ?
Well, I need to connect it to this computer because it's a new Mac. But
I just got multiple computers. A little humble brag.
But yeah, Steve. If not Palantir, then who?
I don't know. But why does it have to be a who?
You're right. It does.
There's a lot of great companies out there. I mean, Berkshire is not even at $1 trillion right now. I don't think.
Well, they were at $1 trillion.
Oh no, I stand corrected. They're just over $1 trillion right now. Just over. I mean, look at Broadcom. Broadcom and Oracle aren't over it.
Well, it's also, hold on. I got another argument besides just Bitcoin.
Oh, Broadcom hit $1 trillion?
Hold
look
on.
At that.
Steve, I have another argument. Why do people pay $5,000 for a Chanel bag? What is the bag intrinsically worth?
Yeah, I know where you're going with this. It's worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. I get it.
I mean, again, I have a lot of respect for what you're saying about the numbers, but if people think Palantir is worth what it's worth, and maybe they won't one day, I mean, people think Bitcoin's worth 100 grand.
But when you're buying stocks, I think it's more people think they can make money on it.
Oh, of course. That's why they buy it.
People are not buying a Chanel bag because they think they can make money on it.
But they do want to be perceived in a certain way.
They want to be perceived that they have money or they are in a certain element.
Yeah. So if I want to have the potential of making money off Bitcoin or Palantir and not be perceived as being more financially stable, but actually get more financially stable, then I'll take a shot on those companies. And if I'm humbled by the market, then I have to deal with that. I'm saying all of this ultimately ebbs and flows with how people think about it. But all of us are trying to figure out how Palantir is getting this multiple. And I don't think any of us have the perfect answer. But I think the answer just might be that people want to be involved in the story more than they care about the valuation itself. Just like people want to be involved in Bitcoin more than they care about the fact that it's 104,000.
At some point, the rug is going to get pulled. I don't know when, but at some point, it's not going to be able to sustain this.
Well, it's up to Palantir to grow and try to keep executing.
I mean, no other company has ever done this.
She's a unicorn. She is indeed a unicorn. No, you're right. No other company has stayed at these levels.
No other company has ever done this and stayed here. This could be a double top. Let's say.
Granted, Steve, you said that at 105. You said that at 85. Now we're at 130. This is not even a double top. We just passed the top. What are you talking about? We passed 125.
It could still be a double top if it starts coming down.
It has been a really cool week though for Palantir investors. It's been a cool week regardless. You know, it's been fun to see all-time highs. But I agree, they got to put up the growth to keep justifying it in.
If they miss earnings, God forbid, on EPS, forget it.
Yeah, look, that'll be bad, but I don't think they will. I just think they're executing too well to do that. They might though. Anything could happen.
I mean, it is just crazy when you look out. The analyst community thinks they're going to grow by 42% this year, and then 26% the next year, and then 32% the following year. They're not going to get, I mean, on 2029 earnings, the analyst community is expecting them to generate $2.04 in EPS, which is still trading at 63 times earnings in 2029. Like, that's wild.
I mean, it's up to them to beat expectations. It really is.
It is.
How's $2 and how's that 69 times earnings?
That's for 2025, Steve, or?
Oh, sorry. I'm not
2029.
thinking. Got it.
You know what company's
I was
interested?
doing the wrong math.
Altria Group.
Let's talk about cigarettes, baby.
No growth, baby. No growth. But you know what they are growing? EPS and the dividend by 4% a year. 56 years of dividend growth.
But see, Steve, I love these alternative plays you come up with. You've been very right on them, but no one cares about Altria Group. That's my point. And if people don't care about it as much as a Palantir or a Tesla, you know, it's just a different way of thinking about it. Here's Steve's article I'll put right here in the chat on Altria Group.
I mean, this thing was so undervalued. I still think it's undervalued. And when the Fed eventually starts cutting, people are going to want something that's yielding over 7% with 56 years of dividend growth and projected to grow in the mid-single digits year over year. I mean, this is a dividend that's going to probably grow to $4.94 over the next couple of years, just based on the base rate of what they've been growing it at. I mean, I was telling everybody at $40 that this thing was a steal. Nobody listened.
No, you're right. You were preaching this from like 2023 on my channel. I remember.
When this hit 40, I was like, this is a steal.
Well, there we go. That's Altria Group. Again, the article right here, guys, for those that want to read it, I'll put it in the chat. You can check it out as well. All right, I think that's it. This was a fun Palantir Weekly. This was a good discussion.
Oh, and Mitt, you know that set of Pokemon cards I bought yesterday?
Yes. What about it?
You know how much that thing's freaking going for on the secondary, and it just came out today?
How much?
When I'm going to give you an accurate price. I checked earlier today, and I couldn't freaking believe it. Prismatic Evolutions, the Super Premium Collection, it's going for $245. I got it at $180 yesterday.
So that is a how much return?
In a day.
That is a 36% return in a day.
Like, how crazy is it? The Pokemon market is so nuts.
What do you think about Tanner selling covered calls?
I'm happy that he's learning, but I don't think that he needed to.
I don't know how much of his NVIDIA position he put up for sale, but he put up.
I think Tanner's in a good position. I don't think he needs to. I don't think Tanner has to do anything he doesn't want to do.
145 would be a bit aggressive by next week, eh? Like that one.
I mean, I thought 128 wasn't going to get hit today, and I sold those when it was at 117.
But you didn't know about the UAE stuff. That's
You're right. I didn't know about the UAE stuff.
Yeah, I think he could be okay on those.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. And if not, we'll show him how to roll.
Glenn, thank you for the $19 super chat. Some people invest in Palantir, others like me only trade it. That's Glenn's who I'm talking about. You know, he day trades it. And
look, I get it.
So that's fair.
I get it.
Glenn,
I mean, why is Evolving Skies at $1,600? I bought it at $430. That doesn't make any sense. The Pokemon market's crazy.
Matt, what are you doing over the weekend?
Supposed to be a rocket launch tomorrow.
Where? In Texas?
No, New Zealand. So I might watch that.
Is that for Rocket Lab or
Rocket Lab? Yeah. What else is there? Good question, man. I don't know.
Steve? What are you doing?
Probably writing an article.
Are
or
you
two
are you visiting the dairy dealer again?
on Sunday morning. I gotta text him tomorrow my order, and then I'll be seeing him on Sunday. Oh, Alex just texted me.
We need you to call the dairy dealer live.
No, I don't call the dairy dealer. I text the dairy dealer.
Oh, hold on. I got to bring this up, dude. The freaking Pokemon proves my point about Palantir as well. Dude, like who the hell's paying 36% more in a day for Pokemon cards, bro? What's the cash flow of Pokemon cards, Steve? Please tell me.
People are getting in fights in
value.
Costco.
What Ash Ketchum gotta catch them all? That's worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
All I know is that the entire TCG market is on fire.
Yeah, but why? It's all based on nostalgia. That's it.
Supply and demand.
No, it's nostalgia around.
No, it's supply and demand. I can actually explain if you want me to.
Please tell me why Palantir deserves to not have a 300 billion, but your Pokemon set deserves to be worth anything, even $1. Why?
Hold on, I'm just waiting for something to finish printing that my wife needs. Hold on.
You should be printing a sheet to help you answer this question, because if you make an economic argument about supply and demand, that is irrelevant to the intrinsic value of why people are paying a certain amount and why there is any demand or any supply for Pokemon cards. Now, granted, again, I'm not trying to shit on Pokemon cards. I'm just saying, like, same thing with Bitcoin, right? There are different reasons why people...
I was partly hoping that Steve wasn't wearing pants. just straight up, just like assless chaps or something.
Matt, that would not happen. You kidding me?
I know, but I was just like...
So, I got to turn the chat off because they're making me crack up. All right, so the reason why the Pokemon market is so crazy right now is because the Pokemon company prints a certain amount of products, okay? Over the past year, rip and ships have become huge. I'm not going to disclose numbers of what certain people are doing. Let's just say that if I told you, and Amit knows, because we've discussed it with him, the numbers are quite big, correct, Amit? What's going on per week?
Yeah.
And Alex is not even one of the bigger guys. They're all buying as much product as they can, and they're ripping everything immediately on stream. This is happening on Whatnot. It's happening on YouTube. It's happening on Instagram and TikTok. They are taking all the product off the market and ripping it. Pokemon is not printing excess. They're still printing the same amount. So all the people that collect or use it for the actual game that is played have to pay more for the actual products. And you have a situation where there is more and more people getting into the hobby because they're trying to scalp. So that's even more people that are taking product off. This is an actual product that's desirable, because while I talk about it as a market for making money, the real aspect of it is this is a worldwide game with regional and global championships. There's a whole segment of players that have to buy the product in order to compete and play in league and all that other stuff. And when you have the rip and shippers taking a mass amount of product off, and then, I mean, your family owned liquor stores and stuff like that, so you understand exactly how distribution works. People who have card shops, okay, Hallmark stores, those types of stores, never really got into trying to sell these things, but they see the massive margins on it and how quickly it's moving. So now they call their distributors and say, I want a case of that. And while they've never bought Pokemon product before, they've spent so much money with this distributor that they get a box or two. So now that's more product that's getting distributed to other places other than TCG stores. And there is just less product around. So the prices are going sky high. It makes complete sense. And it's
okay, so hold on. Does anything you think you're saying matter more than Palantir software saving lives on the battlefield?
matter more as in relevancy? Palantir is way
No,
more
just
relevant.
objectively, does any of that matter more than a single thing Palantir is doing for the government, for the West, for the DoD, et cetera?
Matter more is an
Does
opinion.
rip and ship for 6 hours matter more than what Palantir software?
But once again, it's supply and demand.
No, but I can say as a YouTuber, my content does not matter more, even though people enjoy the content, than what Palantir is doing for soldiers on the battlefield. Can you admit rip and ship Pokemon supply and demand does not matter more than Palantir software?
Palantir software matters so much more. But
So
that
then-
does not change the fact that the demand outstrips the supply.
But that's my
which is
point.
Making
But that's my point about the
Pokemon
stock.
cards go through the roof.
The demand for Palantir stock is outstripping the supply, causing the stock to go higher.
Right now, but the difference is Pokemon cards don't deal on EPS.
Yeah, they deal on nothing. That's the better part. They deal on absolutely nothing. That's my
just
point,
saying.
bro.
I'm just
These
saying.
are fairy tale stories that people figured out how to build a market around. Same thing with Bitcoin, even though I do think there's some intrinsic value there. And it creates a supply and demand imbalance. It's just the thing on Palantir is you actually have cash flows, you actually have profitability, you actually have a company doing something. I'm not saying it has to be trading at 300 billion. I'm just saying, like, there's a reason people buy it. Just like there's a reason people buy Pokemon.
And the fact that Pokemon is outpacing the S&P is crazy. Look at this growth in this box. It was selling at 687 this time last year, and it's going for freaking almost $2,000 a box. And there's a lot of boxes being sold.
No, and I'm really happy that you're making money in this market, but does this make sense for Pokemon to outstrip the S&P 500? Does it actually make any logical sense, or is it just supply and demand?
Man.
But so that's the same thing with Palantir, right? You can't get upset
No,
about Palantir valuation.
because the difference is there are trade shows every week for this stuff.
So
every
what?
Week. Every week. Yeah, admit you're
There's a Palantir weekly every Friday. Like,
you are gonna. I'm taking
except
you.
this one.
No. I'm gonna take you to the Westchester Card Show the next time they have it. I sent you a picture from it. It is nuts what goes on. The amount of money changing hands at these places is insane. It's insane.
But all you're saying is there's money going back and forth. You've not told me the intrinsic value of Pokemon cards.
Well, if you really want to get down to intrinsic value, the intrinsic value is when you rip everything, besides catching them all, what you could sell for each individual card for. In some of these sets, if you grade them and get a PSA 10, they're thousands of dollars for the single card.
So the intrinsic value is that if you find a good one, you can sell it for higher than what it's worth.
There are some boxes that the expected value is more from opening everything than with the sealed product as well.
I don't think that's comparable to the intrinsic value of Palantir software saving someone's life.
Well, the intrinsic value of Palantir stock would be,
No, but the stock is a derivative of a company, whereas the price on a Pokemon box is a derivative of nothing.
How many customers does Palantir have?
769.
Okay. There are probably 769 Pokemon collectors within 3 blocks of where I live.
That's not proving the argument, Steve. All you're saying is that people are hyped up about Pokemon. That's it.
All I'm saying is that this is something that has continuously gotten bigger.
And I like this market. I'm a fan of Alex, and maybe one day I'll trade this stuff. I'm just using it as an example against Palantir. And you're upset about Palantir's valuation, but you are not upset at all about Pokemon cards.
Why does 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 10 go for $20 million?
Well,
because of scarcity.
Yeah, and also because he's a good baseball player.
Some would say arguably the greatest, even though I don't think you can make that argument, but there's
some value there, is what I'm saying. Like,
there's some value in Pokemon cards too.
Well, there's some value in 21 million Bitcoin.
There's some value in 21 million Bitcoin.
And there's some value in 2.5 billion Palantir shares as well. That's
right. And they're going to keep diluting people. They're going to keep diluting us.
Look, the point is if people are willing to pay for it, that's what determines value. So hope you guys enjoyed this discussion. This was fun. This was a good one. This is what we get from Steve. Matt, any thoughts on Pokemon versus the rest of the market?
I haven't bought any lately, but I haven't sold a single box. I have enough. Probably not. I should probably buy more. I think Steve's wrong on Bitcoin, which is fine. We agree to disagree.
Yeah, it's a store of value. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying it doesn't, my whole thing is it doesn't have utility. It's a store of value. So it's whatever people believe it to be. It's just, I just dislike when people say it's going to overhaul finance because that's not the use case. You can talk about Solana if you want. I'll agree with you on overhauling finance. Sure. I won't even say the one that I'm invested in. I'll say Solana.
Someone says, I'm gonna need to shower after this to wash the nerd off me. This was the nerdiest conversation like ever on this channel, but I still think it was a good one.
I mean,
by the way,
we can get a lot nerdier if you want.
We can get a lot nerdier. By the way, covered calls are gonna print on Monday because again, it just looks like this Moody's thing is taking stocks down, and that's why this market is prime for covered calls right now.
Matt, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What are the top 5 Steven Seagal movies?
Oh, dude, I wouldn't know.
What?
Yeah, I'm pretty good with movies, but that's probably where I end up getting caught up. I wouldn't know. You can ask me about other ones though, and I hopefully wouldn't embarrass myself as much as Amit does every stream.
Okay, first of all, this weekend I'm here to say I will watch a movie. Okay, I promise with my heart and soul. We're going to figure it out right now because this Saturday I actually have a couple meetings on Saturday, but after those meetings, I plan to just chill out and do nothing other than watch a movie. Can't be The Godfather because it was too boring the first 5 minutes. I'm done with that.
We're done with mob movies. How about that?
We need a new movie that you guys, I was going to tweet this. You guys, again, objectively, can you give me a movie that is so good it would be impossible for me to not watch the movie?
Have you seen Inception?
Yes, I've seen Inception. I've seen Interstellar.
Shutter Island.
Huh? Shutter Island?
Yeah.
I saw it a while ago. It's whatever.
What about the Ocean's movies? You watched all the Ocean's movies?
No, so those are on Netflix for free right now. I could watch
Ocean's 11, and they're all incredible.
They're pretty good. Yeah.
I want something different, dude. I want a movie that's gonna make me be like, man, I'm so happy I watched that. Like I need.
Oh, happy.
Like or just.
Have you, what's that movie? Have you seen Seven with Brad Pitt?
That's not gonna know. Great movie, but that's not what he's looking for.
I've seen Shawshank. I've seen High School Musical for the person recommended.
Dude, go watch Wedding Crashers.
Wedding Crashers is a good one.
I don't want a comedy, but I want something to make me.
You just said you want to be. All right, fine.
I want something that makes me be like, man, I spent 2 hours and I feel different about life. Like I want.
You're not going to get that out of a movie, man.
Well, I got that out of Inception.
Go watch Casino Royale. I mean, if you don't like that, it's going to be hard to.
Which of the James Bond movies have you watched?
Casino Royale is the best one of all.
I've never seen a James Bond movie, but Daniel Craig, there's a guy James Bond.
He is the best Bond there is. I don't want to hear Sean Connery. Don't want to hear it.
So this is the one, Casino Royale. This is the one I watched.
The best Bond movie they've made.
8 out of 10 on IMDb. That's worth
Followed by GoldenEye, and I'll debate anybody.
Oh, GoldenEye was good.
Dope. GoldenEye was so
Pierce Brosnan, bro.
Pierce Brosnan was the second best.
Dude, everyone's saying that movie sucks. Everyone's saying don't watch Casino Royale.
People are crazy.
Great movie. I think because the poker scene does a pretty good stuff. Crap. What's that movie with Will Smith where he gives away
Pursuit of Happiness?
No.
Dude, that movie is good.
That's a good movie too.
I mean, go watch The Program.
What's The Program?
It's a football movie. Go watch The Program.
1993.
Matt, you played football. What are your top football movies?
Who's James?
Any Given Sunday is a good one. What's the one with Kevin Costner? That one's not bad.
Draft Day.
Yeah, Draft Day.
That's awesome.
I heard 7 Pounds sucked.
Dude, you should.
Yes,
really
thank you.
Go watch Friday Night Lights.
Dude, I don't
Friday Night Lights
movie. I don't care about
so good.
I need something like Inception, like Interstellar, like The Dark Knight. I need something serious and real.
You should go watch The Program. It shows what freaking college football is really like.
I've seen The Departed already.
Departed's a great movie. Remember the Titans? I mean,
what's that?
That's a good one.
So good.
Yeah, have you seen Limitless? Limitless is a good one. I like Limitless.
Makes you think.
Limitless changed the way I look at things because I realized how much of my brain I really don't use and how much. I still also think about this about how lazy I could be all the time, and how much I can definitely be utilizing my brain more, but it requires you to think differently about life and how much you can actually achieve if you actually put your mind to it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Limitless. A lot of you
Limitless
guys.
is an incredible movie.
What about some war movies? Like,
Oh, dude, Black Hawk Down.
yeah, you got some good ones in there. Black Hawk Down.
I still think 13 Hours is the best one, even though it's not technically war movie, but it is kind of.
13 Hours is good.
13 Hours is so incredible. Oh,
Okay, so what's the movie? What do I watch?
What are people saying in the chat?
I think you guys start in the 80s. I think you got to watch Days of Thunder since you've never seen it.
Days of Thunder.
Dude, Days of Thunder is a classic.
Oh,
Or
The
you
Game
gotta
with Michael
watch-
Douglas was a good one I watched a couple of years back again for like the third or fourth time, and that one was really good.
Or you got to watch freaking the original Top Gun.
Ooh, original Top Gun is good.
Like, how you haven't seen those two are just incredible.
Oh, what about Boiler Room? Have you seen Boiler Room?
No, Steve said to watch that one.
It's a
Boiler
good
Room
movie.
is like the real version of Wolf of Wall Street.
I feel like
So-
that one would be the best one for me.
Boiler Room was so good.
7 out of 10 on IMDb.
Don't go by IDMB. Dude, go watch Lethal Weapon 1. Like,
Ooh.
Lethal Weapon 1's incredible.
Oh, Steve, I need your thoughts because you're a movie guy. I've never watched any of the Bourne Ultimatums. Or
The
Bourne
first
movies.
one's incredible. Second one's good.
Why do I feel like you told me this before?
First one's incredible.
Maybe I should watch it.
Yeah,
My
and then
uncle loved it. I never watched them. I just
go watch Bloodsport.
Markets are down after hours based on this Moody's things, guys. So that's either Monday it continues or we may recover on Monday. All right, so I will watch High School Musical 3 this weekend because I actually haven't seen
Please
that one.
don't do that.
I actually haven't seen it. I gotta finish the trilogy.
Please don't do that.
At some point I probably should. That's on Disney
Go
Plus.
watch Bloodsport or Kickboxer or something good.
what about Terminator? Did you watch
Yeah,
Terminator?
you've never seen Terminator. Like, what's wrong with
Okay,
Terminator,
boom,
Predator.
that's the one I'm watching. Terminator. I'm watching. That's the one. Terminator. The Terminator. I'm gonna buy that on
you know
YouTube.
what? It's going to be interesting to see what Amit's reaction is, considering that was made in like '84,
Yeah.
and where we are at in technology now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Starting to see the
that's-
figures like jumping around and shit, and you're like, oh yeah, it's a little.
It's official. I will watch this. I will report on Monday. I will get this film inside of the
Dude.
LLM. That is my brain.
'84. This was 31 years ago.
I'm doing it. I'm gonna watch this. I'm gonna watch the Terminator. So now you guys can't make fun of me.
Terminator's a good one. Steve, what's your thoughts on Gone in 60 Seconds?
Amazing.
Nicolas Cage.
I'm not a huge Nicolas Cage fan, but Gone 60 Seconds is so amazing.
How are you not a Nicolas Cage fan, bro? He's
I will say I am a fan of National Treasure, believe it or not. I think that was a very good movie. Very
Yes,
entertaining.
National Treasure was good.
Very
And I
entertaining.
I
Have
also
you-
liked this is Tom Hanks, but I like the Da Vinci Code movies. Those are pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Angels and Demons.
I've seen The Big Short. I love that movie. I love that one. Okay, so Terminator. I will get that done. And then no one can say shit.
You got a lot of things you need to watch. Dude, Lethal Weapon, you got to watch it.
What is it about?
Two cops, Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, Martin Riggs, and Sergeant Murtaugh.
1987.
Such a good
Is
movie.
this an iconic movie?
Iconic? Yes.
Okay. That'll be next week. Well, I got
You
it.
know, Matt, you said war movie. You should watch Braveheart.
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 $20 of it will not
Wait.
Getting
For
through
somebody,
it.
For somebody that loves Palantir so much, have you watched any of the
No,
Lord of the Rings
no.
movies?
No, I tried, dude. It's too long. I couldn't get through it. I didn't do it. So it is what it is, bro. I tried. I couldn't do it.
None of the Star Wars movies either.
No, Star Wars. I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
I don't understand the Star Wars at all. I'm really what's his name?
Zac Efron.
How about Midnight Run?
Zac Efron fan, but Wait, who directed Interstellar? It's James Cameron, right?
That sounds right.
Matt,
Right?
how about a little
Yeah,
midnight
I'm a
run?
fan of his movies.
Midnight what?
Midnight Run.
What's that?
What?
Yeah, you gotta.
Dude, you've never seen
I still
Midnight
did. I think. Did you send me the list of movies I need to watch, or was that just a myth?
I don't know.
Oh, Chris Nolan. How did I forget that? That's what I meant to say. Chris Nolan.
Christopher Nolan's.
Wow, I cannot believe you haven't seen Midnight Run.
What is Midnight Run?
Bobby De Niro's a bounty hunter. It's such a good movie. It's a comedy, but it's hilarious.
Midnight Run.
I might have seen clips. That sounds. I feel like.
Dude, hold on. There's a movie between The Weeknd and Jenna Ortega in theaters right now called, I think, Hurry Up Tomorrow is what it's called. I want to see that because it's Jenna Ortega. Like,
Go
no
deeper
one-
on that. What does
We
that
got a
mean?
lot of people saying Midnight Run's amazing.
does no one want to see the Jenna Ortega Weekend movie? Like,
No.
No, I like Jenna Ortega too.
dude, she's gorgeous. Like, I would, and The Weeknd's The Weeknd. Like, the music, I feel like that it's awful. You guys think it's bad?
I think that you would really like Lethal Weapon also. There's so many good movies you haven't seen.
God, you're making me want to go to the store and grab some popcorn.
Same here. Like Lethal Weapon, I may watch that tonight.
Okay, well,
I might buy a bunch of movies on Amazon.
It put freaking Gary Busey on the map.
who's Gary Busey?
You did not just say who's Gary Busey.
How do you spell his last name? Busey.
Oh my god.
Who's this guy? Silver Bullet, The Firm, Predator 2, Rookie of the Year.
What about TV show? Has this kid watched Entourage? Like what?
No, he doesn't like Entourage, man. He doesn't.
I
like
wasn't.
it.
I wasn't a fan. Oh wait, look. If you guys watch Dawson's Creek, I'll watch Entourage.
Hey, you like Dawson's Creek? You're gonna like Friday Night Lights, the show.
Dude, you need to watch Friday Night Lights.
All right.
The movie. Which should you do first? Should you watch the show first? The movie first?
I didn't watch the show. The movie's incredible.
I can get a little sappy, emotional, a little. You guys know
Dude,
me. I like my
Friday
girl
Night
drama.
Lights is a top 5 football movie.
The show was great. Friday Night Lights was show.
Top 5 football movies in no particular order. Friday Night Lights, Any Given Sunday, Remember the Titans, The Program. And it's hard for number 5 because there's so many good ones.
There's a lot of good ones.
There's so many good ones.
Have you watched Armageddon, bro?
No.
Wow.
That's why I became a petroleum engineer. No, I'm just kidding.
Really? That's
Bruce Willis in the movie. He's an oil guy, and anyway, it's a running joke in the oil industry because they
Maybe
drill
see
for
Training
stuff on an
Day?
asteroid.
Hold on, I gotta get a call. Give me a second. No, I haven't seen Training Day.
Is your
Training
Pokemon
Day.
dealer?
That's who he's ditching us for Palantir Weekly.
Seriously.
Look at him. He's trying to act like it's not a date, but it's a date.
100%.
She's prettier than me. I think it's getting dumped right now online. He's definitely getting dumped right now. Or he's giving her, or they're going to Chili's and he's giving her the right Chili's address.
Okay, I'm good. I'm back.
Okay.
By the way, hold on. For everyone asking why did Matt say something funny? Everyone's laughing.
Tell me you saw a Point Break.
Matt, what did you say, bro? Why is everyone laughing?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I often don't get. I'm not that funny, but I
hold on. I gotta rewind. What the hell did he say? What did he say? But anyway, for everyone wondering why the market's down, it's because of the Moody's downgrade. That's why stocks are down. Dude, what did you say? Apparently, it was very funny.
Well, let's let Amit get to it, and
yeah, he's gotta go shower and shave.
He's gotta go get ready.
Dude, I don't have a date tonight. I don't know why you guys are still saying that. There's not enough news to have a Palantir Weekly. Like, I don't know why that's. I don't know.
Go watch a movie or two.
We ended up having a Palantir Weekly basically today.
Oh, yeah.
I need to go get dinner. I'm freaking hungry.
Dude,
love you, Steven. Love you,
weren't
Amit.
enough. Like, what are you talking about?
Later, guys.
Love you both.
Later,
I'm gonna watch your sign off, Amit. I love you. Bye.
Bye. Dude, what did Matt say? What did he say? You guys are laughing way too much. Way too much. Grinder. Oh, he probably said something about a grinder date, dude. That's probably exactly what he said. Dude, I have no date tonight. It's just I'm tired as hell. It's been 10 hours a day of talking. I kind of don't want to talk at 11 p.m. Eastern tonight, and there's not enough news to talk about for Palantir outside of the stock going up, which is great, but you can't force an episode just because the stock hit all-time highs, you know? So, and Arnie can't make it either. So, yeah, there's no... Did he say I got dumped or something? Oh my gosh, dude. He said you're taking his date to Chili's? Dude, that's hilarious. No, generally, dude, I'm going to sleep tonight. That's what I'm doing. He said you're getting dumped, but he said it. Dude, it was my dad. My dad had to call me for something. It's like there's something at the house we're trying to sell. He had to ask me a question about it. So that's all it was. But yeah, dude, I'm sleeping tonight, bro. I'm tired. It's been a long week. It's been a lot of talking. I've started to ever since I lost my voice last week, I realized like I actually need to care about my vocal cords, and I can't just act like I can, you know, just keep talking without taking care of myself. Like that does matter, because if I can't talk, I can't do this. So I'm trying to be a little bit more conscious of that. And yeah, you guys are hilarious, bro. You guys are hilarious. And for everyone freaking out about why the market's down, I really think this is a nothing burger, bro. I really do. I don't care if the S&P is down 1%. This does not matter. Who the hell cares about a credit agency that has been wrong many times in the past, like they were in 2023, downgrading us? Who the hell cares? Like, and if stocks go down, buy the dip. Like, and if you don't want to buy the dip, some institution's going to buy the dip because they're not going to let this opportunity go to waste because our credit rating goes down. What? They're going to go exit NVIDIA and buy Japanese debt? Like, this is a nothing burger. These are algorithms that are going to react to whatever they're reacting to, but this is not something I would necessarily be super scared about. But it does prove my point that it's a covered call market. It is absolutely a covered call market. Are you done with You on Netflix? Yes, I finished You. I didn't love the ending. It was okay, but I love the show still. I still think it's one of the best shows. So it wasn't too bad. Yeah, dude, I took a ginger. I literally put the ginger and the honey together, and I took a shot of it last week when I was multiple shots of it when my voice was. You know the thing that helped my voice the most though, and the cough, it was NyQuil. Like I should have taken NyQuil way earlier than I did. NyQuil got the job done, bro. You put some Sprite in it, you really get the job done. But no, in all seriousness, NyQuil really is what I needed. Damn, bro, I'm down a lot after hours. Holy crap. It was a great day, and then boom, just done after hours. It's what the market does. It's what the market does. I didn't have to go to a doctor. I really didn't have to. It was NyQuil. That's it. My dad wanted me to go to a doctor, though. He thought it was getting really bad at one point. But then I took the NyQuil, knocked out for like 12 hours. I woke up. I was like, I'm good. Like, it's really not that bad. Trump tweeted on Moody's. Did he? Trump is definitely going to get upset at Moody's. He hasn't. I don't see the tweet yet on Moody's. No, I don't see it on Moody's. But if he says anything on it, he's just going to say, who cares? Like, and I think he's right. Like realistically, it's not good the way our deficit's going, but that doesn't mean you sell out of the best companies in the world. So Crody said add Sprite. Dude, I learned that in T-Dot. I learned that at T-Dot. That's what you guys do. You add Sprite to the cough syrup. That's how you guys get down. Okay, hold on. I got to show you guys this video. By the way, I'm joking. I do not drink lean. That was a joke. I want to be a rapper. I've always wanted to be a rapper, but I don't drink lean. All right, here's this video I got to show you guys. I saw this video today. This is how we ended up. I saw this video, bro, and it was the funniest video ever. And all I could think about is this is exactly what you guys think my life is going to be like one day. One day I'll be doing an interview, and I don't know how many of you guys have seen this before. It's the first time I've seen this. You guys, the only thing I thought about was this is how the chat is going to perceive me to be one day when I'm much older doing an interview. Okay. This is Norm Macdonald with the late and great Larry King.
What's something people don't know about you?
I'm a deeply closeted gay guy.
No kidding.
Well, I'm not coming out though.
Wait a minute. What are you revealing here today?
I'm not revealing anything. I'm saying I'm deeply closeted.
Well, that means you're gay.
I wouldn't say that. Why would I say that? I'm deeply closeted.
No, but that means you're very, very gay, but you don't want to come out. You're so closeted.
That I refuse to say I'm gay.
Right.
Exactly.
But doesn't that mean you're gay?
Hey, easy, buddy.
What's some?
Dude, I saw that today. The only thing I could think about was this is exactly what you guys think my life will end up like one day. That was big news when Norm Macdonald did that on Larry King, but he didn't come out. He just refused to come out of the closet. So, yeah, I think a lot of you guys will imagine me saying that. I showed Michelle this less than 24 hours ago. Did it pop up on X? Because it popped up on X for me like 3 hours ago. Yeah, a couple of you are saying, ET said I was watching this interview last night. It had to come up on your algo, bro. I think this clip is like going viral again. How many views does it have? Yeah, 1 million views. It might just be the X algo showing it to people. That was hilarious, bro. I saw that shit. I was like, that's exactly what you guys probably think about me. So here we go. There we go. All right. So this weekend, priority number one, numero uno is to finish the Terminator and make sure that I consume that content. And then you guys can't make fun of me. I will give you guys an in-depth review of the Terminator on Monday. And yeah, outside of that, this Moody's thing, I really wouldn't stress it. I think it'll be resolved in the next week, just like it was in 2023. I don't think it's a big deal. And if it is, all right, we get another dip. And whoever has covered calls, you get to rinse and repeat. But where's UNH after hours, by the way? UNH, it was at 291. Now it's at 287. So every stock kind of getting hit right there. Palantir 125. Wow, Palantir down 2%. Hoodie 59 below 60. So definitely seeing a bunch of stocks get hit. The S&P 500 right here, 588 after hours. But I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world. So yeah, I'll watch the Terminator. I don't have a date tonight, even though you guys assume I do. I really just need to sleep. And there's just not that much Palantir news. That's all. Oh, shoot. Game 7. Yeah, I forgot. It's not tonight, though. But I don't know, dude. I'm going to say OKC. But I have no idea. I think OKC is going to do it. But Nuggets are a hell of a team. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's the Nuggets. But yeah, that one I think is on Saturday. So that'll be an important one as well. It's not a date. It's called a meetup. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no Chili's tonight. Oh, the Knicks are playing tonight? Oh, that'll be a big one for the... All right, so cool. I have to watch the Terminator, not the Knicks. I'm watching the Terminator. I'm going to watch the Terminator. And hopefully, dude, I could get it over with tonight. Maybe I can watch the Terminator tonight so that I don't have to worry about it tomorrow. Dude, I literally think of watching movies as a chore. I'm not excited to watch them. I'm doing it because I said I would do it, but that's not my definition of relaxing. Not watching movies. Comedy, thank you for the 5 super chat. Watch everything else from Norm Macdonald. Norm is like Palantir. Once you understand his genius, you will be mesmerized. Yeah, I mean, this was one of my first introductions, so I will be diving deeper into that content. But that clip right there, I was like, this is absolutely what you guys must think I'll be like eventually in the future. All right, cool. That's it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the support this week. It has been a hell of a week for the markets. We'll keep analyzing it as always. Appreciate everyone joining the market open and market close. It's been, it's just been fun every day, dude. It's been fun every single day. I love doing this every single day. I enjoy it more than I can explain. I'm very, very blessed and grateful, and I don't take it for granted to be able to do this every day. And I think the reason that it's working out is the consistency and the love of the game more than anything. And I just want to keep growing and keep having this passion and fire every single day. I don't know how long I'll be able to do it. I don't know if 10 years from now I'm still doing it, but I think I will, but I don't know. But right now I've got the energy. Right now I'm excited about the markets. I also think that if I wasn't covering the markets, I would be obsessed with it myself. So why not just share that obsession via a stream, right? And through Twitter and all that stuff, and kind of build a brand from it, given that's what I'd be doing anyway. So really, really, really just grateful to be in this position. to be in this opportunity, to have everyone's trust and attention every single day, to be able to keep doing. I really don't take it for granted. I know you guys could be watching a lot of other stuff. You guys could be doing a lot of other stuff. Even if you just have me in the background, you could be, content is competitive. You could be doing anything at this time, but you choose to watch me, Steve, and Matt debate about Pokemon versus Palantir, which, if I say so myself, I think I got Steve a little bit on that Pokemon one. I think I got him a little bit on the Pokemon one. So that was a fun conversation. But the fact that everyone wants to nerd out with us about that, it means the world. It really, really means the world. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Vinu, thank you for becoming a channel member as well. Thank you all for the gifted memberships this week, super chats, being here, your attention absolutely means the world, and for being part of this community, because it is a community. The Boston meetup, we are still doing that. I will give more information hopefully over the weekend, so you can sign up right there in your email. If you're close to Boston, you can hop out and come by May 24th. That's when we're doing it. And yeah, we're going to keep doing these meetups in person and keep developing and building this community. And when we have a green week like we had this week, it goes to show how much more important it is or how much more fun it is to do it as a community, right? It's kind of boring if you're just sitting in your room and seeing your account go up. Like, it's fun, but it's also like when you have a community to celebrate it with that has mutual interests, it's just way more fun. It's way more rewarding and meaningful, in my opinion. So appreciate everybody. All right, I'm out. I should stop yapping. It's been 3 hours and 15 minutes. That's it. That's it for me. Thank you, everybody. Love you all. I'll see you guys Sunday on the Futures Show. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.